Sorry, you want to do it?
I went to Sunny Slope.
Perfect.
Faith flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. It's always great to have Sunny Slope students and alum here. Are there any agenda changes? Requested? Great, we'll move on then. And now we move on to the announcement of the council members and then staff. Any announcements? We'll start, yeah, Dan.
As a board rep for Sandag, at the latest meeting, they are really trying to, when they have big projects going with multiple projects, they're really trying to stick with one contractor. And by doing that, it's helping them save money, not have cost overruns, reduce duplication. So those are some good things that I think we could look into, having the same person instead of having two doing the same thing over and over. And also what they're also doing is, it won't affect us so much, but in downtown, they're going to do a mixed use bus layover facility for all of their buses. So their buses have somewhere to go when the bus drivers have a 15-minute break. So that was the big news at Sandag. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Pablo. Councilmember Rugg.
Thank you. Last Thursday, I attended the Chamber of Commerce networking breakfast, and the guest speaker was he was a member of the South Bay Historical Society, and told the history of Imperial Beach. A lot of it I had never heard. It was absolutely fascinating. So one of our staff admin people, Ed V, and I have been working on the display cases in the lobby here at City Hall, and Ed and I have come up with a tentative schedule of months and days and weeks that members of the community, service organizations and clubs could participate in that, and having a display at the in the display cases. But like I said, it was the speaker was just thrilling. I guess if you like history, I found it thrilling. But some of the anecdotal notes that he had about the city of Imperial Beach were really charming. And then I just wanted to remind the community too that tomorrow night is graduation night at Mar Vista High School. This will be the 63rd graduating class at Mar Vista High School. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other announcements? I have a long list of events I'm supposed to read off, but just before that, I want to say that Andy Hall, our city manager Andy Hall, and I had a really nice meeting with Lieutenant Brown from the Sheriff's Department, and then we met all your staff. I guess that's the evening shift, or that was the evening shift. So really, really nice just to thank them for their service. A lot of discussion in the national media about police officers, et cetera, and we just want to let our sheriffs know how much we appreciate their good work. And what I love as mayor and a public official is to have data to back that up. So Lieutenant Brown talked about the very nice reduction in our crime rate and how well we're doing, and the fact that we're beating Coronado, which I've let lots of people know, including their city manager, how much safer Imperial Beach is. So we're inviting all the parents of Coronado to move to IB so their kids would be a lot safer. And we're a cooler city anyway. But the other important thing about that the lieutenant talked about, which I think is really important, there's been a whole movement to really figure out how to keep less people in prison and put people in prison who belong there, and really capture the hardcore criminals. So the sheriff's, Lieutenant Brown talked about the fact that our criminal intelligence unit, or the sheriff's department, is staffed by folks who come out of very high levels of the military and with really, really experienced people. And that really gives our sheriffs the edge in really capturing the bad guys. So we've got some really, really we've got some really, really high level folks working for the sheriff's department that when crimes do happen in IB, they really use that intelligence unit to crack down and find the perpetrator. So I thought that was really great. And the lieutenant emphasized they didn't expect to see it sending less people to jail, but the crime rate declined, but that's what it's done. I think we're doing a lot more strategic, community-based, and smart policing. So I want to thank the sheriffs for that. It was really nice to let the officers on the street know that. So then we had a really nice, wonderful Memorial Day organized by the local chapters of the American Legion, veterans for foreign wars, and then all the Fleet Reserve. It was very moving. Thank you, Councilmember Bragg, for being there as well. And we had, I think they said it was one of the largest crowds ever for that. So it was really, really nice. And we also mentioned and read about the fallen heroes that had been honored here last time. And then I did a bike across the border with Sandag on last Friday, and it was just to really highlight the need to make sure that folks on bicycles can cross the new pedestrian crossing at Virginia Avenue that's being built by GSA in San Ysidro, and more importantly, to help Sandag actually plan the connect from the Bayshore Bikeway all the way to San Ysidro. So that's really important. So they're actively working on that, and we're very thankful that I was there to really emphasize why we need to get that Bayshore Bikeway connect from IB to San Ysidro on the border. So finally, here are the things that you should all know about. There'll be a presentation on the new IB library by Supervisor Greg Cox on Tuesday, June 16th at 6:30 p.m. in the Marina Vista Center. The meeting's open to the public. The City of San Diego will be holding a Palm Avenue Revitalization Plan Workshop tomorrow night, Thursday, June 4th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the American Legion. And that's really the continuation of our planning effort in IB on Palm Avenue. There will be a sheriff's coffee with the community on Tuesday, June 16th from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. at the Boys and Girls Club. And then the IB firefighters and IB lifeguards entered cars in the 2015 Firefighter Demo Derby at the Del Mar Fairgrounds on Saturday, June 5th. I guess that's a Saturday, so that sounds great. I'll have to attend that. So anyway, and then we've got a lot going on. The port is doing a movie night at the pier, which is super cool, and as part of a series around the South Bay and port cities. And we get to see Soul Surfer, which is a great movie, on June 26th. And I'm assuming that's 6:30 p.m. So that's great, and that's free. So bring your kids to that. That's a very inspiring movie. And then finally, next Saturday will be the first ever Global Wellness Day at the Pier South Resort in Imperial Beach. There'll be all kinds of cool stuff going on, including yoga, Tai Chi, meditation, boot camp, nutrition, chalk art class, and it's all local providers that are doing that. So it's really great, local residents doing that. It's only one of 3 global wellness celebrations in the entire country. So IB is on the cutting edge of that. So it's really good. So anyway, and with that, do we have any comments from staff or city manager?
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
You've been so busy. But I did want you to speak about the meeting that you went to with the other area mayors regarding water conservation, if you could.
Thank you. I mentioned that. Thank you. So on Friday, Mayor Faulkner asked me to participate in a press conference on Monday at 11 o'clock at the Water Conservation Garden at Cuyamaca College to talk about the importance of drought tolerant vegetation and really reducing the fact that the city of San Diego is going to go to 2 days watering a week. And really, if you haven't been to the Water Conservation Garden out at Cuyamaca College, it's really amazing. And I'm a big fan of native vegetation and drought tolerant gardens. We have one in our own yard. And so it was a good opportunity. I was with the mayor of Poway, the mayor of El Cajon, the mayor of Lemon Grove, and the mayor of Escondido. And just talking about, everybody was on message about this is a serious drought. It's not going away, and there are no excuses. We all in it together. This is a team effort, and we all have to reduce water. But correspondingly, national news this morning was that Californians are reducing water, I think already by 8% over last year or something. So that's good. Summer's here to come. And I know the city is very committed to looking at removing more grass and putting up hopefully some cool butterfly gardens or native vegetation gardens. And that's a great example of what we did in front of City Hall. So anyway, and my message was, when you save water, you save money. So that's good as well. So that was good. Yeah. And then we'll move on to public comment. Do I have any public comment cards?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Good. Okay. And if you wanted to comment on other issues related on the agenda, make sure you get your blue cards in, and then we can do that. All right. So now we move on to the consent calendar. And I would like to entertain a motion to approve consent calendar item numbers 2.1 through 2.3. Please vote.
Motion carried unanimously.
Good. Now we have item 3.1, ordinance, introduction and first reading of ordinance number 2015-1151, Coastal Commission stipulated modifications to the zoning implementation of the 2013-2021 Imperial Beach housing element, MF 1060. I declare the public hearing open, and City Planner Nakagawa will give the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And members of the City Council, we're asking the council to consider the introduction and first reading of this ordinance tonight, conduct a public hearing, consider any testimony, and then set the second reading and adoption at your next council meeting. Option one of this item would be to adopt the ordinance that would bring our regulations into compliance with the state's housing element law, coastal commission regulations, and federal law. Option two would be not to approve the ordinance, but then it would render our housing element out of compliance with state and federal regulations. The Imperial Beach housing element was adopted by the city council 2 years ago. 2 months later, or a month later, the housing element was certified by the Housing and Community Development Department. Last year, the council adopted the ordinance to implement the housing element programs 12 and 13. Just 2 months ago, the Coast Commission provisionally certified the ordinance, but with the stipulation that their modifications be adopted by the city council within 6 months. The modifications primarily are to ensure that the implementation did not conflict with the Coastal Act. And again, staff recommends that you receive the report, conduct a public hearing, call for the introduction, first reading of the ordinance, close the hearing, and then consider the matter for its second reading and adoption at your next meeting.
Thank you very much. Any other additional comments or commentary? Okay. Is there any public testimony, any public comments?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Great. With that, we'll move on to city council discussion. Councilmember Spriggs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know how much leeway we have in this, but I have, I think in just reading it over, a technical or typo type concern, as well as a substantive concern, Mr. Nakagawa. If you look at the language that the Coastal Commission wants to insert or stipulate under definitions, the very first paragraph, and I may need the help of the city attorney in figuring this out, but it looks like there's a repeated, this is the technical one, a repeated use of the term the city's certified local coastal program.
All right.
If you read that, it's mentioned twice in a row at the end, and it just seems to me that it's confusing and it's an error to include it in there. So it ought to read in the underlined section, or if the proposed density is in an area subject to the city's certified local coastal program or the general plan.
I think it reads correct if you read before that.
Is an area subject to the city's, okay, all right.
All right.
It's mentioned 3 times. Okay, that's my suggestion. That one of those is redundant. That three references to the same thing
Mhm.
aren't really needed.
I think it's bad punctuation. Should be a semicolon after the probably the first local coastal program, so you get the idea of the options.
I think you could remove the middle one and it would read the same.
Yeah.
I think we can do that. I think we can remove the middle reference to.
All right. Yeah, you're right. Okay.
It'll read the same.
Right. So the first one is appropriate, right? Then the second one starts after that comma starts a second thought. So it says, if the proposed density is in an area subject to the city's certified local currency program, we could put in, I'm not saying we should, but it actually reads, then the city's certified local coastal program, the general plan, or the city's certified local coastal program, density shall prevail. This is about density, so density there isn't something new. It applies to general plan or city's local certified local coastal program. So I think the middle one is redundant, and I don't know if it's worth going back to them, on this. But the next one I think is more problematic to me, and that's down at the bottom of the page. 1902-070, reasonable accommodation for persons with disabilities. And it seems to me that this is allows us to be flexible in our application of zoning when a developer or an individual is trying to comply with the American for Disabilities Act
Mhm.
and have a reasonable accommodation, and we're going to be flexible in trying to accommodate that. The language that they insert and want to impose on us goes beyond their jurisdiction, I believe, because it doesn't only say the city's certified local coastal plan, but it also is a limitation on our ability to make, and then the question of what's a fundamental alteration in the nature of the city's land use and zoning and building regulations, policies, practices, and procedures. It just seems to me like that's going too far, and especially when it gets to policies, practices, and procedures. It's the Coastal Commission creating a situation where we, in being flexible to accommodate a person with disability, can then be questioned because it's a fundamental alteration or not. And that should be our decision, not the Coastal Commission's. And I'll just add that if you look at the next page, the last item where there's a change, just for consistency of language, item L4, you see that the references are to, there we go, that's good. The jurisdiction's land use and zoning or building program, not policies, practices, and procedures. Those words are our words, and they ought to be consistent between what's written here in terms of what we're prepared to, how we're prepared to limit our ability to make accommodations for disabled persons. That ought to be the same formulation in the preceding section. So it should not refer, in other words, to policies, practices, and procedures for consistency between these two. And because policies, practices, and procedures are a lot more flexible in their interpretation than the local coastal plan or the city's building regulations, zoning regulations, and land use regulations. Those are really what I think this is intended to apply to.
And Council Member Spriggs, probably to partially respond to that, we don't run into the case where we've had to make these accommodations. Very rarely. And I believe Jack could probably cite the number of instances where someone in a wheelchair had been asking for any accommodations, but I don't recall offhand. So it's one of those extreme cases, I would imagine, where we would have to then look at our ordinances and see if they're really deviating substantially from what the intent of the requirement was. And when I queried the Coast Commission staff about all these changes, they said although this was based on a model ordinance that was produced by an organization that deals with disabilities, the Housing and Community Development Department, they didn't object to this language. The Coast Commission said they had inserted this kind of language in the housing ordinances of Oceanside and Carlsbad and some of the other coastal communities. So it appears that it didn't raise any issues. I'm not so sure that it really responds to an issue here.
Well, I'm raising an issue and I'm not going to fall on my sword over this issue, but there's always the question, and every city has this concern about the coastal commission exceeding its jurisdiction, particularly the staff, throwing things in whenever they can that sometimes have to be taken up with the board if it's a really substantive matter. So this is a fairly small thing. I don't know that this is ever going to arise as you're suggesting, but when the Coastal Commission is talking about city practices, deviations, quote, fundamental alteration in city practices, that is a matter of very local jurisdiction. And if someone wants to make a case that we are engaging in a fundamental alteration of our own practices in trying to reach an accommodation, to me, that just opens up way more than what the Coastal Commission really has a right to address. Their concern and their jurisdiction is the local coastal plan and the city's land use plans as written and firmly established and approved by the Coastal Commission. And so it's fine for them to say that we should not make any fundamental alterations in the things that they have approval authority over, but how we carry out local procedures and policies with respect to our zoning plan to accommodate disabled people is something that goes a little bit too far, it seems to me. Now, there may be other arguments that it's too late to go back or we lose more by complaining about this than we gain, et cetera. I'm just simply pointing out that this is one of those areas where they have, I believe, gone further than they need to go as a matter of staff discretion in telling a city what needs to be incorporated into their zoning regulations.
Councilmember, if I can respond, I think your comments are actually appropriate. I think there is some mission creep in that second issue. So if I can summarize the proposed changes that you're trying to make to the resolution, it would be to remove in section 1965-020 the middle reference to the city's certified local coastal program. And then in section 19.02.070, to change that so long as the requested flexibility or waiver would not require a fundamental alteration to the city's certified local coastal program. Yeah, their purview is the local coastal plan, so we should keep it to that. That's a point well taken, and I think we can make that change.
If I could just add, and your point is well taken, and I can't argue with the comments you've made in terms of the Coastal Commission input. From a practical standpoint, enforcement of this code would be the city's. So the city would be making the determination if this is a fundamental departure in our practices or policies, where it would get to the Coastal Commission if somebody happened to disagree with that reasonable accommodation and they challenged it, and then it ended up at the Coastal Commission. Now, again, I can't argue with the comments that were made. The one thing I would say is that in making a suggested modification to their suggested modification, you do stand the possibility that they will reject it, and you'll be back considering this ordinance amendment at a future date. And I just say that as from experience, and there is that possibility. However, there is a possibility they will accept it. So I just wanted to point that out.
Okay, I'm going to make sure I'm clear on now process, since this is an ordinance and there've been suggested modifications. So I would call for the introduction of first reading of ordinance, but the suggested modifications would then be listed in the discussion where we do a motion for the ordinance for the suggested language. Is that something I have to add legally?
You should add that if the council wants to adopt the changes as read by Mr. Hall, then you should just reference the changes just listed by Mr. Hall.
And then it'll be on your agenda at a future meeting for consideration as amended.
Okay.
For the second reading.
Sorry, Councilmember Patton.
From what Mr. Wade said was kind of reading my mind. I agree with what you're saying, but sometimes people in this position as they're reading, and then they see something they're not used to reading, and it raises a red flag. And what could be the ultimate damage of that red flag? Or could you tell me if they saw that new wording, what happens then? I mean, at the worst case scenario,
If they saw the new, from the Coastal Commission's
the new
perspective.
language that we may add or tonight, what happens if they see that and they get red flags? What next?
We certainly, at a minimum, we would want to offer reasons or a rationale for making this change from what the Coast Commission is suggesting. And I would offer that, if the council's intent is to change the wording some, then they would want to see what the reason was for making that change.
Yeah, and I think our reason would be relatively clear, is that we believe that the purview of the coastal commission with our general plan is the local coastal plan. And so we just do it, for them to make reference, I think it's a point well taken, for them to make reference to the city's land use, zoning, and building regulations. They don't have purview over those regulations, so it probably shouldn't be.
So we would
suggesting
meet
language
here, it'd be brought back to us again.
That's hard to
That's what I'm
tell.
trying to get to.
Yeah, I think this may be the call of their executive director, Charles Lester, where he might look at the change, see what our reasons are for changing it, and say, I agree. I'm going to say that this change is still substantially conforms with what we had provisionally certified. And so that would be, I guess, our hopeful outcome on this.
Councilmember Bragg.
Thank you. My question goes to the contract that we have with Tam and Associates. So
Mhm.
if this does have to come back and we have any changes, we are still under budget with that contract.
No, they were responsible for just putting together the housing element policy
Okay.
component of the general plan. And actually, the policy element of the general plan, the housing element, is not subject to the purview of the Coastal Commission. Only the zoning ordinance that implements that is subject to the Coastal Commission's jurisdiction.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think in terms of policy, ultimately, it's not Charles Lester that decides what's appropriate or not. It's the Coastal Commission. Charles Lester can make recommendations. And I agree with my colleague on the council. The Coastal Commission tends to interpret things in a very broad manner that necessarily are out of the purview of the Coastal Act. And so this is a kind of a gray area, but I'd say we're fine on standing our ground. We're trying to simplify a policy and make sure that we're very focused on what our policy is and the Coastal Act is, rather than getting involved in other things. And they're doing this on lower cost visitor serving accommodation, where essentially they're creating policy without really the sort of qualitative or even quantitative justification for it, and it's getting them into problems. So I'm very comfortable with making sure that we're determining what's important for our LCP, and more importantly for interpreting the Coastal Act. So I don't think we're talking about major things here. All right, with that, any other comment? Okay, so I would call for the introduction of first reading of ordinance number 2015-1151 by title title only.
Ordinance number 2015-1151, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Imperial Beach modifying pursuant to Coastal Commission Certification Order, ordinance number 2014-1146 that amended Title 19 zoning of the Imperial Beach Municipal Code that proposed implementing programs 12 and 13 of the 2013-2021 fifth cycle housing element, MF 1060.
Without dissension of the City Council, I'm closing the public hearing. And is there a motion to waive further reading in full of ordinance number 2015-1151 with the changes listed by Mr. Hall, and set the matter for its second reading and adoption at the next regular scheduled council meeting? Is there a motion? Please vote.
Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to the public hearings portion of the evening. And if you are going to comment on this item, please make sure that you have your blue card in. Item 4.1 is Kegel consideration of the applicant, consideration of regular coastal permit 140023, conditional use permit, CUP 140024, design review case, DRC 140025, site plan review, SPR 1426, and tentative parcel map and categorical exemption pursuant to CEQA guidelines 15332 for the demolition of one existing residential unit and construction of a new mixed-use development with 3 residential condominium units above commercial units at 95 Seacoast Drive. I declare the continued public hearing open, and Senior Planner Fultz will give the report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. The recommendation is that the city council adopt the resolution to approve the demolition of the building and construction of a new mixed-use project at 951 Seacoast Drive. The rationale is that the project should benefit the city by creating housing, commercial space, and economic benefit. And also the design review board recommended approval with a 3-0 vote of the project. The project's located in the CMU2 Seacoast Commercial Mixed Use Zone. And this is the project site as it sits today on Elder Avenue and Seacoast Drive. And this is the project site. Property to the north is Argus Village. Properties to the south, to the east, and to the west. This is a site plan for the project where commercial space would locate off of Seacoast Drive, and it would take up a majority of the bottom floor. There'd be 3 units above the first floor, which we'll go into. There's 1 commercial parking space off of Elder Avenue, which would be ADA compliant. And then there'd be 5 residential parking spaces off of the alley. This is just a larger version of the ground floor plan. The access to the residential units would be through the back, through either an elevator or stairwell enclosure. And through the front is where commercial space locate. There, don't know who the tenant would be at this time. There could be up to 2 tenants or just 1 larger tenant, but the intent is to have an outdoor seating area or walking area. That's why the building is set back a little further from the property line. And this is the second floor for the project, which would be all residential. This is 1 residential unit here, and then the second unit would access off of the second floor as well. And then the third floor is the second floor for 1 of the units, and then the third unit. And this is the roof plan, which would have roof decks for each unit, which would have a variety of landscaping. And there's also a component where there's a lighthouse roof element that would house mechanical equipment. There's also an elevator shaft and also a stairwell enclosure. And that leads to the elevations of the building. The project's requesting a height limit of 35 feet. Typically, the limit's 30 feet in this zone. You could request an increase to 35 feet if you meet development incentives, which the project's meeting or proposing. They are proposing portions of the project to exceed the height limit, which would be the stairwell enclosure or the mechanical equipment enclosure, the elevator enclosure, the stairwell enclosure, and then the parapet walls. All these elements are allowed to exceed the height limit per our municipal code. The project's also proposing a floor to ceiling dimension for the commercial space of 13.5 feet instead of the required 15 feet. That could be allowed with an administrative adjustment. It's similar to what the City Mark project proposed. And the reasoning for that is so that they could have at least 9-foot floor to ceiling dimensions for the residential spaces above. The project's also proposing to have a 1-foot overhang into the right-of-way for the roof overhang for the mechanical shelter. The rationale for that is typically when you have a roof, you have an overhang. The building's right on the property line, so that's the reasoning for it. The city's requiring a dedication of property for ADA ramps and also an ADA Americans with Disability Act driveway on Elder Avenue. So with that rationale is why the project is proposing to extend a little bit into the right-of-way for an overhang. And these are the elevations on the north and the south. The north is on the alley, and then the south is on Elder Avenue. This is the rendering that was proposed at the last council meeting. Some of the comments during that meeting were to recommend removing the pop-out elements from the roof and also lightening up the building. So with that, I'm just going to show you some of the designs again that were proposed at the last meeting. The applicant has proposed three alternatives. This is just nighttime viewing. This is not an alternative. It's just a nighttime viewing. So the alternative is right here. Here's one. This is with the lighter wood element, and this is just one of the views. We have a few of the views to show, but they're proposing for the wood to get lighter. And this is another view of where the wood would locate. A lot of it's on the back portions, and some on the front. And all these alternatives were given to you as a last minute agenda item, just for your information. And this is the second alternative. And something I didn't mention is also the stone is a little bit lighter as well. So there's a different material shown than the original. This one has a more natural wood tone. So it's a little bit darker than the previous version, but lighter than the original version. And the wing elements from the roof have also been removed. And this is another view showing that alternate. And this is the third alternate, where it still has that natural wood tone, but it added additional wood tone to replace some of the copper pop-out elements on this portion of the building here. This is another view. And these are just the pictures showing the four options that are currently presented today. So there's still the original option, if you could just imagine it without the roof pop-outs. And then the three alternates where you have the lighter wood, the more natural, darker wood, and then the wood and the two locations on the front. With that, the council can receive this report and adopt the resolution, or approve the project with any modifications, or disapprove the project and deny the permits, make findings doing so, and or continue the public hearing to a later date where additional revisions may be made and additional information can be provided to the council. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Do we have any public comment cards?
No, Mr. Mayor.
City council comments? I don't have anything on the, let's press this. Good. Councilmember Patton?
I'm not sure if I'm legal or was he up? Did you come up before and speak? Okay, you're the developer, right? Come on up. Come on out. Well, I had the pleasure of actually talking to Mr. Kegel today. I gave him about a 5-minute phone call, just kind of hear kind of his end of it. And what I heard was a very passionate man who was going to live in one of the residents, and which means I'm sure he's going to take good care of it, which I liked. Let me ask some questions. I wasn't at the last meeting because of work related.
Can I ask for a question? Mr. Kegel, could you put your name and address on the record just for
Yes,
this?
my name is Richard Kegel. I live in 951 Seacoast Drive, and I'm very happy to be here. And thank you for all of you to allow me to speak again and consider our project that soon. Thank you so much. And I was trying to make all the changes that you people requested in a few days that took place.
Okay, Mr. Kegel, you ready?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
All right. This will be easy. The lighthouse use, I see that's one unit,
Yes, sir.
right?
Yes,
I assume your unit.
yes, sir.
Okay. I'd take it too.
You would take it also.
Yeah, I would take it too. What type, and you may have answered these questions, but I'm sure some people would like to hear, what type of a window covering are you going to use?
Well, we plan on using some stained glass on top.
Okay.
Tinted glass, I'm sorry, tinted glass. And then some kind of electrical shades that would come down at night when you need it, because a lot of sun comes in the afternoon. At that portion, it gets very hot.
Absolutely.
So I think some kind of shades, electrical shades that can just push a button and make it darker.
Okay, because I know Mr. Dedina could vouch, sitting in lifeguard towers, both of us, up on the pier,
Yeah,
it gets
very hot.
very hot,
Yes, sir.
very hot. Like you wouldn't even want to be in that room.
I agree. Plus all the glass, because we want to have the beautiful view of the ocean.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of glass on that side.
Right.
So we do have to have something that'll be either tinted glass and then plus additional
Okay.
electric.
So that's covered. This may not come into play much, but you know, they're making TV sets 60, 80, 90, 100. What's to stop you? And I guess nothing to stop you to put a giant, the biggest TV screen you could buy up on your wall, and I'm driving down Seacoast and I'm watching TV, or would your blind? I mean, I was just thinking about driving down. I mean,
Well, first of all, I wouldn't want to have all the light coming in even at night.
you'd have your blinds.
Yeah, and have the blinds would be probably, and we wouldn't want to walk around and be exposed and,
Right,
and
right.
TV and things like that.
Okay,
So-
you're reading my mind.
Okay.
Okay, landscape. I know landscape. It's changed. It's changed a few times, but my big concern on landscape, of course, the water usage,
Sure.
as well as that the landscape stays as you designed it.
Yes, sir.
Down like 2 years down the road, we don't have one daffodil coming out of a weed.
Listen, if I may answer that, I'm very particular. You can see in the design and the quality of the building and the structure, and upkeep and cleanliness is next to godliness. And I feel, I'm not just speaking for now, but that's my lifestyle. I like everything in order. And I would like to have that green stuff because it's beautiful. It's part of nature. That's why we want to live near the beach.
Little green. And the lighting, I know that one street light, you can see, everybody can see that one street light is kind of right in the middle. It's there, right?
It's
I mean,
there. There's
a
nothing I
few
can do
months
about
down
it.
the road, you're not going to say, hey, can we move that street light?
No.
No.
I have to live with certain
Yeah.
things.
And is there going to be any additional lighting on your building?
Yes.
I'm sure you guys all asked that.
Yes, there's indirect lighting all around the building, as we spoke last time.
Yeah.
You know, we're gonna put indirect lighting, so the whole place, even by the garage side and the
So we'll-
back side, so there's safety, number one.
for
and peop-
pedestrians.
And also, this way also protection, gives you protection during the night.
Because we don't have the night view slides up here at all.
I'm getting
Oh.
there.
There we go. Okay. Okay. Nice. And thanks for bearing with me here.
Sure.
Rust.
Rust,
Rust.
or rust,
RUST.
RUST. Okay,
You know
well,
what happens down at the beach.
of course, and we spoke about it last time.
Okay. Sure.
That's
You
why I
guys are
proposed
experts.
that all the metals would be put in special acid and
Mhm.
then they powder coated so that protects it from rusting. And that's why I recommended the powder coating type of a copper roof and copper siding versus the regular copper.
Okay. And
Also the Brazilian wood that we talked about, that is probably the best
The wood.
savior, the wood, it's special wood from Brazilian wood it's called, and I did a lot of research to make sure that the buildings have longevity and beauty at the same time.
And you mentioned to me when I spoke to you, what, about 5 minutes, 4 minutes today is my
Yes, sir.
lunch. Your previous building experience. I don't need the whole resume.
Okay,
How
I've
many
been building
years?
For 25
Uh-huh.
years, and my specialty is design. And I used to build very exclusive type of homes, mostly homes, small strip centers. So I'm not a huge builder or nothing like that. I strictly enjoy it. I would like to work for myself, and I enjoy designing. So that's my forte, and I like to see something being accomplished when it gets done, to be proud of something. And I think what we're doing here, it really benefit the city and the beach area where all the, well, I'm gonna be quiet, let you ask me.
Well, this is a very ambitious project. I
Yes,
mean, it's bringing a lot to our city,
that's
very high end,
high-end. Yes, sir.
very high end, and I think it's great. I like it.
Thank you so much.
I do like some of the modifications with, I think it was option 3, with a little more of the darker wood up front. Let's see if you find that one. I'm sure my colleagues have their, yeah, that was it right there. You just had it, that one. With that,
We also
little
lighten
more
up
wood.
the stucco color. We brought it about 3 or 4 shades lighter.
yeah, it's much better. Not so dark, and I get it. I think we mentioned dark, brings class, but it's
We spoke about it,
yeah,
yes.
and we have a real light building next door, so
Correct.
we definitely need some
Real
contrast. So I think that's all I have, and then thank you very much.
I thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Patton. Councilmember Spriggs.
Thanks. I also didn't have the opportunity, and I thank my fellow council members for continuing this discussion and Mr. Patton and I could be here. I also met with Mr. Keegan for about an hour yesterday in the council conference room, also known as the mayor's office. It was a good catch-up session for me since I wasn't at the last council meeting. And I was really impressed with the amount of work that you did between council meetings, and that you, through all those different variations of materials and colors, and some of which we're looking at right now, showing, I think, from what I read in the minutes, really good responsiveness to the council's input. You're obviously a professional at doing this, and you're obviously trying to accommodate as best you can
It's important to me.
everyone's opinions. And I had a couple questions I wanted to ask you, but I also wanted to say that I think we're, from what I've seen and reading also the design review board's minutes, everybody's got their opinion about the color of the wood, the materials, this or that or the other. And I hope we as a council will give this developer the green light to choose, because you can't go wrong with any of these, to choose his optimal scheme for this building, rather than each of us have 5 opinions or 1 opinion each on how you ought to build your building.
Thank you so much.
I really believe that, because you're not just any old guy. You're gonna live here.
Yes, sir.
I didn't mean that in that sense, because I'm probably older than you are. I meant it in
Doesn't matter.
you're going to live here.
Yes, sir.
You're part of this community. You've obviously come up with a wonderful design that's going to be iconic for Imperial Beach. So anyway, that's a plea to the rest of the council members to give you the latitude to come up with, amongst these choices that you've provided, what you think is the best. So my first question is, which do you think is the best?
Anything that pleases you guys.
Oh, no.
I don't want to create a problem for, you're the council members and mayor, and I think, but what I would like to do is I like the original, because we went over with the review board and we did so many changes in stone and stucco and how many longevity and stuff like that. But I do like the last one with the darker stain on the wood. I do like it. And I could also live with the lighter stucco, because the building still makes a statement.
Wait, make sure we're clear on which one he's talking about.
This is the original, and then
Right.
this is the one he was just talking about.
Maybe go to that one
Right
then.
now.
Okay.
So,
Uh,
because right now I'm using, I want to be consistent with language. Alternative 1, which is the lighter, right? That's right. Now, alternative 2, which is darker without the wood feature, and then alternative 3, which is this one here, the darker but with that wood feature there.
Right.
Okay. So right now you like alternative 3.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Okay. Just want to make sure we're clear on that.
Okay.
It still makes a wonderful statement, and I think I was trying to please myself and also the council, and so the city still has a wonderful outlook on it. When I started designing it, it was a little bit different of a building, and then I came up with the idea of the lighthouse, because I wanted to be a beachy type of thing and all that, and we extended a lot of wood to it to make it more, as the mayor said, he liked a lot of wood in this area and things like that. I don't mean to put you on the spot, Mr. Mayor, but
It's impossible. Don't worry.
He's
but
used to it.
I like it both ways. I like my original without those. I like the roof the way it sits. I'm not crazy about the wood on the right-hand side. If I had my way, I would leave the copper just on the front where the glass is. I would leave the wood maybe on the side, but I would leave the copper, because the copper with white, copper with anything makes a beautiful statement. It shines, and it's rich looking, so that would be my way, but anything, I'll work with anything you guys.
So is that option 2?
That's on the 3. You see the wood on the right-hand side, on the square windows there. There's a wood in the front and wood on the side.
Right.
And I would prefer to have the copper on the front. The wood on the side could stand, but the copper on the front, just on the
It's an
front
option that's not provided in your packet.
Right,
So he's talking about a new look.
but it's alternative 2A with wood on the sides, but copper on the front.
Right, exactly.
Okay,
So we're just replace this front with copper.
so that it has the
Right.
copper,
Right,
the whole
just
thing
that
is
part.
copper.
Which ultimately would turn green, brown.
Well, it depends on if you powder coats it.
If we powder coat it, it'll last longer shiny, just like real copper wood. It'll take longer to darken and stuff like that. But it also lasts longer shiny and it's got more protection from the soul.
All right, so I'm glad we pulled out of you what your preferred option would be, even though it's not shown here. And, I think that's a great option. Now, when I was looking, my other questions are pretty straightforward. What sort of businesses would you ideally like to see located in your two commercial areas?
As I spoke last time, I think the area needs something with low tables outside, so it would be something where people could get a smoothie, an espresso, a hot corned beef sandwich, or a pastrami, a little type of deli type, or something with unique products. I wouldn't want to have a liquor store. I wouldn't want to have that type. But something that the public come in, enjoy it, and still have the view with the low tables. Something very quaint, but I don't know who's going to come my way, but I hope the building will attract something nice like that, and people will enjoy to sit there in front and have a nice atmosphere.
Do you have I didn't notice from reading the designs or anything about it, whether you had made provision for a kitchen with an
Yes, sir.
exhaust?
Yes, sir. We did.
Okay.
We're putting an exhaust. We're also putting the grease tanks in the back, so we don't have to redig the stuff. I used to be in restaurant business, so I know what it takes.
Right.
So we're putting the grease trap in there, so in case a restaurant goes in, then it's already there.
That's fantastic. And I've already seen the answer to in the presentation that the roof area has separate areas for each of the owners. Okay. And the last question I had has to do with the floor plan. These are all 3-bedroom units, but it looked to me like your unit is 2 bedrooms.
No, it's 3 bedrooms. There's one bedroom on the ground floor and 2 bedrooms upstairs.
Oh, what you have as a TV room is also could be a
Yeah,
bedroom.
it could be a bedroom.
It says
correct.
TV room
Yes.
in the floor plan.
Yes.
Okay, I see. Well, I think this is a great project, and
Thank
we're
you so
lucky to
much.
have someone like
Thank
you
you,
who's
Norman.
a resident and
I'm more
wants
glad
to
to
be
be
here,
here.
and you're going to put your money into this to make Imperial Beach better. So I'm inclined to go with whatever option you think is
Thank you
best,
so
and what
kindly.
you've suggested is wonderful. And I'm prepared to make a motion to that effect, but I know my other colleagues may also want to have
Thank you
questions.
so much.
Councilmember Bragg?
Thank you. Mr. Cagle, we meet again.
We do it again.
I just wanted to thank you. You've been very gracious and very
you so much.
accommodating to each one of us. And I did want to thank my colleagues for everybody taking the time to really delve into this project. It's that important to us.
I understand.
So thank you for making
you.
your time available
Sure.
to all of us separately.
My
And then
architect
again,
is sick. He's at home because of
He's-
all this
oh.
speed, but no, I'm kidding.
oh, okay.
But we tried to get it done in a short period of time. And, I put a lot of pressure on him to get all these pictures and all these renderings done.
Right.
So. I
We
thank you for
appreciate it.
Yes.
We appreciate it. And I did, again, sincerely mean that to all of my colleagues. Thank you for your time and effort. And just to let the community know that, when these projects come before us, it's very common for us to meet with the developer. This developer has been meeting with us a lot. So it just kind of underscores the importance
It's a
of
special
this iconic
location. Yes,
property.
ma'am.
So you have made many of the suggestions, you've taken them to heart. I
Yes.
appreciate that. Mr. Foltz, I'm going to ask you if you would put up the nighttime rendering, because at our last meeting, we really didn't touch on the lighting as much as I felt that maybe we should have. So, Mr. Foltz, if you could just go over again briefly where the lighting's going to be, so that we're not wondering, is it underlit or is it lit as
Mhm.
much as we would like.
Yeah, there's gonna be lighting all, maybe it's hard to see on these monitors, but there's lighting all throughout the building so that it's up lighting all along this bottom area, shining up and going throughout, even on this side. There's also gonna be lighting on the bottom, but a lot of that is dependent upon the Seacoast aesthetic plan. Is landscaping gonna go? Where's light poles gonna go? So the bottom's undetermined somewhat. Obviously, the commercial businesses would have lighting within as well. So the bottom portion will be lit up well because of all the glass.
Okay. Thank you. I do want to again thank you for that
No,
consideration.
thank
It's
you.
very, very dear to us that our commercial properties
you so
are well
much.
lit and complement what we do as a city.
I know.
Just to speak to you briefly, I have on your behalf been reaching out to some restaurateurs that I know in the
Thank you.
area, so don't be surprised if you
Okay.
may be getting some
Thank you
calls
so
from them.
much. I need it.
Yeah, because we want top-notch commercial entities in there. So we demand nothing less.
Yes, ma'am.
As far as, I think you're probably keeping a tally like you always do.
I'm trying
as
to,
far as-
yes.
Yeah, the
Although
options,
we
because
kind of,
they've kind
we
of
were,
changed. Mr. Foltz, if you could put up the 4 options
well,
and
technically there's 3 alternatives. But now
3,
we're-
okay. But we've
but now
also
we're-
got
there's
one
a
that's
fourth.
not there.
There's the original and then 3 alternatives.
Okay.
Right, okay, so we have the original and 3 alternatives.
Okay, so. And the developer's
Now there's
preference, which is
5.
not there, which is not there.
Okay, hold on, this is important to,
So for myself, I like the upper right-hand rendering, but with the copper that Mr. Cagle spoke about. So are we calling that 2A?
That's
or
2.
2, okay. So 2 with those modifications, with the modifications of the copper in the front.
Oh, actually, if you're with his recommendation then?
Yes.
So it's number 3 with the copper in the front.
wait, hold, time out. I'm gonna make sure. This is important for consistency and making sure, the council member, Spriggs originally called that alternative 2A. Is that correct? Is that what we're referring to? So make sure this is getting
Oh,
very
okay.
confusing, so.
It would be 2A with the wood
On the side. Okay.
Is that what you're referring to, Councilmember Bragg?
I'm talking about the upper right-hand,
Which is alternative 2?
okay,
Yeah, with the wood on the sides.
with the wood on the sides, the copper in the front.
That's alternative 2A. Is that correct, as I
Yes.
understand it?
Yes.
Okay, so we have consensus right now that there are 2 council members, because I'm writing this down, 2A have supported, because that wasn't on the original grid that I did. So, hold on.
And this,
Okay.
Mr. Foles, is just a question for you. Mr. Patton brought it up, and in one of the renderings, that light pole, I think it's in the nighttime rendering, that light pole is not there. I'm sorry? Take them down at night? You're tricky, Mr. Hall. I just have to say that light pole looks out of place. It really detracts from this project.
Hadn't we talked about that last time? I thought we
But
talked about that.
It's there.
I don't think we talked about it. You talked about,
I thought there was
what
a
was
discussion
talked
about
about was the
light
fact that you had to build around it.
Right. I have
That
to
it was
go
there
around
and
it.
you were
Yes,
stuck with it.
Yes.
Any opportunity to move this light pole at this point, or is that just not
During
feasible?
the project, he has right-of-way improvements that he has to do regardless. That could be part of it, or we could wait for the Seacoast aesthetic plan to have a consistent right-of-way along his whole frontage, showing where anything may go, new lights, new landscaping, etc.
But as Mr. Patton spoke about in his opening comments, we learned that there's a time to do this and a time where if you wait, it's going to cost you a lot more money. So if we could have the possibility of moving that light pole during the project development, I would certainly support that.
All right.
I don't want to do away with it. I just want to relocate it.
We
to-
need to. like-
It's just out of place there.
Sure.
It's just out of place.
I agree, but I can see Mr. Cagle moving it, not in front of his place, but in front of his neighbor's place.
No. There's 2 ways that I am seeing quickly, is maybe shortening the light bulb and having the light on top, and then having an extra light on the building to accomplish the same thing. And then the light bulb will not be in the way of all the glass and stuff. Or moving it right, where that square thing is, where it wouldn't affect anybody from either side. You see that,
Is that more like a pedestrian light?
Just comment on that, because I probably am closer to the Seacoast Drive Aesthetics project, and one of the ideas would be to put shorter pedestrian scale lighting, but it has to be determined where that makes sense, since we already have existing lighting. But if that work is going to be done, once we have a consensus on that project, then that would be also an opportunity to
Sure.
swap out a shorter light, a pedestrian
so
scale
much.
light for this tall one. Mr. Hall, is that consistent with kind of the?
If I could just add something about the streetlights, since we've gone through this experience with the new hotel, oftentimes from an urban design standpoint, you try to you locate these lights architecturally with the building, and just looking at this, it might make more sense to move it south to that vertical copper element of the column. What happened at the hotel is when we put in the lights, they were directly adjacent to the patios of hotels. Understanding that these units may not always be occupied by their owners, we had to move that street light at the hotel because the concern from the hotel operator was that people staying there may use it as a fire pole and jump onto it and slide seriously. And for that reason, we moved it away from the balcony. So I just want to stress that moving it is maybe an objective from a design perspective, but then it may have unintended consequences in terms of safety and security and other reasons. Now, of course, if they were shorter, you might not have that potential. But I just wanted to point out that we just went through this exercise and the reasons we did it.
Thank you, Mr. Wade.
As long as the Coastal Commission doesn't object to us moving our lights around a little bit.
As long as
Councilmember
there's
Bragg,
no fan palms.
are you done?
I would just like to make sure that the developer has the opportunity to work with this light pole.
I think we probably all have consensus. This is not a good design, and more importantly, from a safety perspective and a design perspective, I'm sure it can be improved. I'm sure we're not the only city jurisdiction that's dealt with this. So anyway, I think we're all in consensus there. So I have 5 check marks on the light pole alternative. Councilmember Bragg, are you finished? Okay. Are there any other comments? I know Councilmember Patton, you had some strong opinions on one alternative, but then I saw an indication you might. So that's alternative 2A. So I've got, okay, I like that. Wow, we got some consensus.
2A
building.
is the wood on the side with the copper on the front,
All right,
right?
and Councilmember
Okay.
Bilbray. Yep,
With the darker wood, right?
Just because we're all giving our opinions here,
yep.
I just want to say I think I'm the only one that actually does like your original design of the rooftop. I think it reminds me a lot of a lighthouse keeper's lantern. So I appreciate that, and I'm willing to go with, basically give him free roam of the 4 options that he's come up with, and I have full faith that he'll make the project, do the project as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to thank, first of all, the council for their thoughtful comments. And I want to thank the applicant, Mr. and Mrs. Kegel, for working with us, and our city staff also for working with the applicants. I know it was a long process, and the design review board, I really appreciate your willingness to work collaboratively. Thought it was a great process, and all the council members who met with you, that was great. So you're right. Okay, with that, I'm going to make sure that without dissension of the city council, I'm closing the public hearing. And then I'm going to call for a motion, but I want to make sure that I'm clear that right now we have understanding of what alternative 2A is. Is that correct? Are we clear on what alternative 2A? Okay. Senior Planner Fultz, do you want to just make sure we're clear on what,
Yes.
for the record, what 2A is?
2A is alternate 2 right here, shown right now, with wood on the side of this portion of the building, but copper in the front.
All right, good.
And that wood is matching the wood on the lighthouse, around the lighthouse point.
Correct. It'll be the same wood
sign.
throughout the project.
Good. Okay, with that, I call for a motion to adopt resolution number 2015-7577, alternative 2A, as discussed by the council, approving regular coastal permit CP 1423, conditional use permit CUP 1424, design review case DRC 1425, site plan review SPR 1426, and tentative parcel map TPM 1427 for the demolition of one existing residential unit and the construction of a new mixed-use development with 3 residential condominium units above approximately 2,118 square feet of commercial retail space at 95 Seacoast Drive, APN 625-352-23-0. Second, great. Please vote.
Motion carried unanimously.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you
you.
so much. Thank you very much.
Great. Now we move on to report 5.1. That's approval of an Elm Street improvement plan. And Public Works Director Levine will give a report. To make sure that anybody's here who wants to give public comment has submitted a comment card. And also remember that the comments are within 3 minutes. If you need to make a presentation on this project in a group, you can do that. You can put together another person's with another person's comments. But please do that now. And I don't have any comment cards here, so. Okay. Great. Public Works Director Levine will give the report.
Mayor, Mayor and council members, this report is seeking city council approval of the proposed street improvements on Elm Avenue between Seacoast Drive and 7th Street. The project is a summation of a number of workshops with the schools and the neighboring community starting in July of 2013. Most recently in a couple weeks ago in May, being the last one. The project was awarded an active transportation program grant of $709,000 for improvements specifically targeted in the section between 4th and 7th Street in front of the schools that in that area. The project would, in front of that area is purposed to provide greater pedestrian safety, more walkable area in front of the schools, particularly on the south side, provide better access for bicycling and traffic calming in that area. It also would create a speed table or a raised table at the intersection of 5th Street at Elm Avenue, primarily to take the sewer lift station that is below ground there, and it's a low spot in the street, and lift it up so we have less opportunity for water intrusion when we have storms, and thus creating more opportunity for access during storm events to that lift station. There will also be some ADA upgrades on this, particularly in front of those blocks between 4th and 7th Street. The city has committed $750,000 from Transnet for the primarily the street overlay work from 7th all the way to Seacoast Drive, and then some sewer funding for the work specifically related to the raised platform or the raised intersection at 5th Street, and the storm drain improvements that would be necessary in order to have water go from one side of the raised table to the other side to get the water out of there. I won't go through. You have in your packet the images of the work that's been done over the course of the past nearly 2 years, specifically related to 4th and to 7th on Elm Avenue. Rather than me going through and boring you with step by step of everything that's in there, I'm going to
open it up to questions unless you'd like me to go through and just identify particular features from one end to the other.
Are there better drawings than this, or is this it? I mean, are there like a sort of a more of a street level model or at all, or present view? Or is this is the best we have?
This is what I provided.
Okay.
So I apologize for that. I do have large visual drawing, paper drawings that I can set up on either side here for you, for
That's what my
the
council
audience to look at. There's also one in the community room.
All right. Well, are you done with? I'm gonna make sure legally where we're at. The public works director's provided a report. Now, is this because if we answer questions, that's the council discussion, sort of before the public comment.
Yeah, what we're trying to do tonight is to get input from the city council. The first question you asked is whether or not we have different perspectives of this drawing.
Yeah.
At this point, what we have is just the two-dimensional drawing here. This project has not yet been designed. And so what we're trying to do is get input from the city council about the aesthetic portion of this project, and then we will go out and start designing the project, and we'll have much better three-dimensional drawings
clear.
that we can
Okay.
provide to you. But essentially, we're trying to get direction from the city council tonight about the aesthetics and whether or not you're supportive of the design that has been created, and then we can go from there and get the project designed.
Okay. So I want to make sure, just to clear, just because I have here to public, we have public works director gives a comment, and then basically we'll have public comments after that. So that's where we're at right now.
Sure.
that
I mean,
correct?
council can ask questions too. This isn't a formal public hearing.
I get it. Okay.
So yeah, council can ask some questions now, then you could go out to public comment, however you feel best. If you have some clarification questions that you want to get on the table right now before the public comments,
I
that's
guess it's
fine.
in terms of sort of the process. I'd rather not go back and forth to confuse things. So I'd like to open this up for the public. We have two public speakers, and then we can ask
Mr. Mayor,
questions.
could I make a suggestion, please? I think I agree. I think that's better to get public comment and then the council discussion. But public comment, I believe, could be better informed if we have a little bit more of a run through by of the project as you offered to do. Not everyone has necessarily seen all of the schematics and had an explanation because they're not intuitively obvious when you're looking at them, what work has been done and what its purpose is. So to me, it would be better if Mr. Levine we'd allow Mr. Levine to do a presentation, because I see you do have some speaker slips and there is some public interest in this. So
That's fine. In fact, so I'm going to make sure, we'd like you to give more description of what's actually happening and describe what this is, but rather than have an open-ended question and answer period that gets confusing and before the public comment. So why don't we continue the description of this project, and then we can move to public discussion. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So looking at I think it's the second page of your diagram. Well, you've got it on the screen as well. But if you start at the top left corner, and get the pointer to work. This is Elm Avenue, and it starts at the intersection of 4th Street, moving to the east. This is creating a 16-foot wide bicycle pedestrian boulevard or walkway to the west. I'm sorry, to the east. A ADA compliant ramp coming in off of 4th Street. The concept here is a wave form curvilinear design of concrete for both bicycle and pedestrian use. It widens the current sidewalk to the north, encompassing the parking that is currently, well, there's no parking there because it's all red curb, but it would be, if it wasn't red curb, there's room for parking to be there. And we will expand out to what would be the nominal parking strip along through there. And moving to the east, this is the intersection of Corvina. We would be upgrading the crosswalk here to be ADA compliant. And continuing on to the east, You get to where the school buildings start, right in the area where my arrow is, and that drops you down into the center section of the Elm Avenue enhancement area. And you get to Fifth Street. It's here at this intersection. On the south side is the drive aisle that goes into the school parking, which is on the side of the buildings. The other school parking, which is streets, just off the street, it's not on street, but it's off the street, is in this area in here where my pointer is. At this point, we would start a much more ornate design. The area you're looking here with my pointer is the intersection, which would be the raised table. This is where the sewer lift station access is right here, and pretty much on the south quarter of the intersection on Elm Avenue. You'll see then the design changes to widen out towards and into the school property. Currently, you will recall this area off of Elm, just to the east of Fifth Street, is straight in parking. And there's about, I forget, I think it's 25 or 30 stalls that are used for school and visitor officials, basically from this area here all the way to where my pointer is now. What we've worked with the school, and we're creating a drop-off zone for the students, and that would be, they're giving up all but one ADA and 3 visitor parking stalls and allowing us to convert this into a drop-off zone, which should take about 12 cars. Then the remainder of this would be this decorative alternating blue and gray concrete tinted material, and largely for the students and pedestrians to have access to wait for, to gather outside here to wait for their parents' car to come pick them up, or whatever else might be going on. These round circles would be seating areas. There are 8 of them in this design. They are 6-foot wide circular seats of concrete with a design in them, and I'll show you those in the next slide. And then just to the south of this kind of passive area would be this sidewalk or walkway would continue along in front of the school in a wave form. So you can see that throughout we've tried to create this wave or beach or ocean context for these 3 blocks. In front of the school entrance is a medallion, and I'll show you a picture of that in the next one. It's on your next slide, which is the Mariner's compass in here with verbiage text in it, and hopefully I can be able to show you what that is as well. This is the entrance going into the main entrance, so it would be right in front of that area. Then moving on to the east, you're leaving this is the alley that goes, let's see, right in here, I think is where the alley is. It runs north-south alongside Mar Vista High School, just to the west of the South Bay Union School District office parking lot. And then carrying us on then to the east, you're then entering into South Bay Union School District headquarters, and then subsequently into Imperial Beach Charter School, Elementary School, and a Friendship School over here on the corner. You'll notice that once we leave the center part of Elm Avenue between 4th and 7th, leave the area in front of the high school, we come back and mimic the design that is on the west quarter or west third of the project area. And that's what you see down here. Additionally, in order to, we need to keep access for the bus drop-off for the elementary school and the Friendship School. And so to accommodate this and maintain a 16-foot wide walkway along this, continuum along this entire project frontage, the school is agreeing to allow us to move the fence about 6.5 feet to the south in order to keep this area a 16-foot wide sidewalk or walkway all the way to the intersection of Connecticut. This is Carolina here. We would put in ADA compliant intersection and a pop out here, which would be to shorten the distance for students crossing. Students typically cross here now, and there's, if you notice, there is usually an adult supervising the crossing of the kids in this area. This would shorten the distance across for the students. So they're I'm sorry. They shorten the distance the students have to cross the traffic area. And then likewise, in this area, the bus drop-off zone. The bus drop-off zone is also, thank you, sir. There's a buses drop off on Connecticut on the west side. And to accommodate that, and right now the buses have to stack up in order to be able to load and unload the students who are at the Friendship School. And they're limited right now to only 2 spots. And so you'll see 4 buses lined up there, but only 2 can offload because the ramp extends out beyond the edge of the sidewalk that's currently there. So part of this effort will include additional concrete between the trees. If you remember, Connecticut in that area, the education school has several large trees. We want to save those, but we'll put concrete in between them so that the ramp coming from the buses can extend out and we can unload and unload 4 buses simultaneously. So the time for the buses being in that area should be cut in about a half. Thus, there's less time of congestion for the residents and the students trying to get, through that area. And so that's part of the project as well. And then additionally, across Elm Avenue here, you recall the alley comes in, coming south, it's one way. There's a crosswalk here now, and we would do a pop out here to trying to shorten this down. The other thing that pop outs do is it tends to slow traffic down. So it gives an image of a narrower street. And so one of the elements that we're trying to accomplish in this effort is calming traffic. Residents will tell us that that there are vehicles that go down that street at a pretty good clip at certain times of the day. So we're trying to create an environment where they're going to be less likely to go high speed or higher speeds. We're also narrowing the traffic lane between 4th and 7th in here, so that there'll probably be 11-foot lanes instead of the normal 12 or 12.5-foot lanes that you see there now. And by narrowing that, you typically will, again, people tend to go slower. Likewise, we're planning on putting a stripe down the center of the street, again, which that tends to keep drivers on their own side and generally make traffic go at a little lower speed. So the effort is clearly to try to improve pedestrian bicycle safety in this area and to accommodate traffic calming. I think the only other thing that I haven't, comes to my mind, I didn't talk about, because of the, there's two factors here. Because of the raised cross or raised intersection here, water naturally flows to the west from this area in Elm Avenue. The school and the city have had a history of combating flooding at the intersection where that alley goes north and south beside the school. Is so flat, there's just not a lot of drainage, and a lot of water comes through from the school and from the district offices. And so our intent is to put a inlet there for stormwater. This pointer doesn't want to work very well. I didn't want to do that either. There it comes. We'll put a drop inlet here in the near the edge of the intersection of the alley and Ioma Avenue. It will be underground to this raised table. We'll have another inlet at this corner, basically in all four corners of the intersection, because this is raised, so water is going to have to get through it. But we piped underground, and then another pipe continuing to right about in this area here. The storm drain then merges with other locations and travels south across Mar Vista High School playgrounds all the way down past IB Boulevard and into the estuary at Grove Street. I think that's an overview. Hopefully I've covered it.
You said you had additional slides to show the centerpiece or the Mariner?
Yeah, let me go back. Yes, sir.
Oh, I see right there.
Here's the Mariner's Compass. And I can't read it and probably know better than you can, but in my memory is it's something like, well, let's see, I got it. The statement proposed is choose your path, set your compass, then start walking. Also, I didn't point out, but you'll see on the top row on this slide, this is on the eastern section. You'll see printing in there, and there's proposed text such as, thank you for contributing to our family. Please don't. You can learn from your mistakes. Your ideas matter. These are examples, not necessarily what will be in there. We've talked to the elementary school and the South Bay Union School District, and they're pretty excited about having motivational text in the walkway there. And they're eager to have their students or parents to offer suggestions in which we would design into this.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I know we have two members of the public who have put in their comment cards. Mr. Jerry Quinn, remember we have 3 minutes. And I'm sorry, ma'am, did you want to speak with him or at the
Yeah, we're
same
gonna
time?
speak together, use our time together.
So does that mean you're going to do a total, you're
No,
requesting
she's
6
gonna give me-
minutes?
She's gonna release her time to me if I need more time.
If you need more time, that's
Okay.
fine. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, just officially, ma'am, can you let us know what your, since you don't have your name here, your address, if you could let us know in the record what your name and address is so I can write it down?
Oh, my name?
Yeah,
Okay, my address, 628 Elm Ave.
Okay, and your full name is?
It's area code
No, your full name.
Your name.
You only have your first name.
Christine Phillips.
Okay, and you're releasing your time if you needed to Mr. Quinn.
You're releasing your time to me if needed.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, city members, council members, mayor, manager. My name is Jerry Quinn, longtime resident, 570 Elm Avenue. I was actually the appointed representative for all the citizens on Elm Avenue for this project. I actually got together with Spriggs and Patton, and we decided to get the community involved in this project, since this is a community project, as far as the aesthetics and what the residents wanted. And we've worked hard on this for about 2 years now. And I think we've addressed most of the concerns. I think we're not really in a agreement on the wording of some of the words or the things on the compass. I think that's probably needs a little more work. But as far as the design and everything, I think we agree with most of it. The things that we're worried about is basically the parking situation. And we discussed this before we started with Patton and Spriggs about issuing parking permits for residents, because we're going to lose the south side of the street. All the parking's going to be gone, and that's gone forever on Elm Avenue there. And right now with the parking situation, none of the school members, most of the school members and the students all park on the street. They don't use the existing parking lots at all. And one of the issues with this project was to try to get them to start using those parking lots again and getting off the street, because us as residents don't have any parking. And with this project, it's going to make it even worse. So what we would propose is that if we go ahead with this project, we would agree with it if we could get some sort of system to get a permit process issued for the local residents that live there, so they assure that they have their parking. And then as far as the aesthetics, I think we've come to an agreement with most of it. We had a different plan, but changed it the last minute. But I think we can live with this plan. This turned out to be at the beginning, it was supposed to be a community project where the residents got involved and made some of the decisions. And it's almost turned out that the school board has kind of taken over the project. But like I said, again, we will agree with most of the terms if we could issue those permits and address that issue with the parking. They're concerned with their home values and things like that, that's going to happen, and their guests and residents that visit those guests that visit the residents and not having the parking. And right now, there's no parking at all. And it's just going to get worse. And the only other issue that a lot of the residents have is how the parents of the students, how they line up. They don't abide by the law anyway. They just line up in the middle of the street. And if the street's going to be smaller, how is that going to be addressed? Other than that, I think we can go along with that plan that's proposed. We would like to be involved with the aesthetics, though. I heard someone speaking, I think it was Hank, that the school board has kind of taken over that part of it, but we as citizens of that and community, we would like to be involved in part of that as well, as far as the final draft of this and some of the other wording of there on the sidewalks and things like that. I mean, this is going to be our community basically that we live in every day, 24 hours a day. So other than that, I think that was our main concerns.
Great. Well, thank you very much,
All right.
Mr. Quinn. Okay, feedback from the council members? I don't have anybody that's... Councilmember Patton. An honored alumni of Sunny Slope School. Thank you
Here
so
we go.
much. Here.
All right. Great education, I tell you. So, Mr. Levine, just a few notes I've written down. School district's completely on board with, you've run this by them numerous times. They're on board.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
School board, you know how the school board members are. They're great. This, and you talked about the bus for special needs kids at the Friendship School. That is a question of mine. Is there any special surfacing that needs to be done in that area alone, like concrete or anything on the street part for that amount of heavy buses on a daily basis that's going to go, that's not going to ruin that street.
Well, they're already there, sir. And the street is not in that block of Connecticut is not in very bad condition. I think it's in fair condition. It's not programmed for overlay for the next 5 years, that at least as of right now. So they're not going to be increasing the traffic at all. We're hopefully what we're going to do is minimize the time that they're sitting there.
No, that wasn't my question.
Okay.
The weight of the school buses. No, not WAIT, not weight. The weight of how heavy it is.
Right.
Of the school bus. That weight on that area, like you look at MTS buses, they have a platform where they pull in so that street doesn't sink. Just a question.
Right. There's no plan at this time to change the street of Connecticut, the surfacing of Connecticut Street.
Turning into the district office from either way will be possible.
Yes, there'll still be a driveway entrance. They're just going across that expanded walkway.
Not a problem either way. And we've had 3 public meetings. Is that correct?
No, we've had many more than that. We had 4 in July through September of 13. Then in 14, when we were going out for grant, we met with the community. Then when we got the grant, we met with the community, and we met 3 times this last spring.
Okay. And since your last meeting, has there been any major changes that you didn't discuss already?
No, what you're looking at is essentially what we came up with the last meeting with the community.
Okay. The raised table for the is that almost going to be a traffic calmer?
Yes, raised tables are designed to be traffic calming. It just serves as an additional benefit in our case to help reduce the flooding in that intersection for safety purposes.
And can you remind me what the posted speed limit is?
It's all 25 because it's a school zone.
25. And I did talk to some residents at one meeting, and they are losing spaces, and I think maybe down the road that we do look into, because that will be a problem, them losing spots, and we could talk about that some other time. Permit process, and I don't know how that works for our city, but they're giving up, so I think it's real important that we give a little too. That's more of a technical issue.
From the outset, the principal, well, it's a different principal now, but we've also communicated. He emphasized if as part of this effort on their side that they would do everything in their power to encourage students and the teachers to park on their property in their lots, and I'm sure we'll continue to work with them to try to do that.
We'll just kind of wait and see type deal. Yeah, that's all I had. Thank you.
Councilmember Bragg. Councilmember Bragg.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Levine, for the presentation. And I did meet with Mr. Levine prior to this meeting to go over a few things, but I still do have a couple of more questions and comments if I could. To start off with, I would really like to thank the school districts, both of them, for their participation, the dedication of property to make this project happen. We often look for partnerships and cooperations with our other major players in the community. So thank you. Hey, Mr. Levine, I just have a list of questions and comments that I'd like to go through very quickly, and if you could just answer them. As far as the positive affirmation statements on the sidewalks, I really like that feature of this. I'm sure that we can all come to agreements later, but I think that we are really heading in a good direction with that. It was one of my favorite parts of the project. If you could talk about the curb improvements, that was kind of not really talked about in your presentation just now. And do you want me to list all of my questions? You want to take them one by one?
My brain probably would not remember all of them, so
Okay.
it'd be better if I go one by
Okay.
one.
If you would talk about the curb improvements.
The primary locations that there would be a curb change in our proposal is on the north side of Elm Avenue between 4th Street and Corvina. That's a rolled curb in that area. And we'd like to put a G curb, a right angle curb with ADA compliant driveways at each of those locations. What I'm going to propose to the engineer when we do this is that we add those improvements along there as an additive item in order for council to decide whether they want to add the dollars to the project. We don't know what the bid's going to come in at, as you saw in the staff report. The engineer is estimating, since we started this project 2 years ago, that construction costs and kind of ideas of how this project would look if provide an engineer's estimate is about 300,000 more than what we have previously set aside or budgeted or received grant for. So I want to be careful about the funding, and so you provide council options of, if we can't come up with the extra money, if there is extra money needed, that you have an option to be able to say, I'm taking this, but not this. We've done that in several other projects. And it's quite possible the engineer's estimates over. I mean, they like to be conservative. You just tells you to recall when we did Palm Avenue a few years ago, between 7th and 3rd, the engineer's estimate was about 2.1 mil. And we ended up doing the project for about 1.8. So we were well under. So it's hard to say.
Okay. Would you explain to me the height of the table?
It will be the same height as the curb. So when you walk off the sidewalk, you'll walk off without stepping down.
Okay. So how many inches is that?
At 6.
Okay. Another thing that you didn't talk about tonight, but you did when you and I met, I just want to make sure that the public is aware of it too, is stop signs.
We have not yet, but we will engage a traffic engineer. The community has asked that there be always stops at the, excuse me, at the intersection of Corvina and Elm, at the intersection of 5th and Elm, which already is, ask basically to retain that, at Carolina and Elm and Connecticut at Elm. Those do require traffic engineer warrants, and so we'll be working that out as we get the plans, and we'll know better what the recommendation will be.
Okay. And I've only got 2 more questions. If you could explain a little bit more in detail the traffic flow for the drop off of students.
Sure.
That has been raised. There's a question I had as well.
Well, I know that well, how do I answer that? The intent is that they would be entering the drop off from the west headed east. So the traffic flow should be coming from the west to pick up or to drop off and exiting out the east side. And like I say, I think there's 12. No, I mean, I think there's 12 to 18 spots that are physically there, could be there, depending on how much space people leave between their vehicles. And it's completely off the roadway, and they're not between parked vehicles and the traffic in there. So it should be making the drop off safer. There's nothing that prevents people from dropping off in the street. We're hoping that they will use the available parking that's provided. It may be a while educating. We may end up having some community service officers out there trying to educate people of how to do that. I'm sure there'll be a learning process, go through it. We can't guarantee what people are going to do, but we're hopeful. We believe the plan that we provided will make it safer for the kids, the cars, and the bicycles.
Okay. And then lastly, if you would just point out, there's quite a few grants at work here too. There's a couple of grants. There's the stipulations that, if we don't approve the project, the grant money is returned. So this is a huge effort. This is a huge project for our community. One that I think in the long run we can really be proud of, because it's complementing, the front door of our school, which is extremely important. But if you could talk about the project, the length of the project as well.
If we get approval tonight to proceed in the direction that we've outlined today, we're hopeful it will be advertising. The designs will be done late summer, early fall. We'll be advertising in October, November, and construction probably won't start in December, but probably January. I'm always optimistic that I'm going to meet those schedules, but you can also see that things happen and I don't meet those schedules. But that's certainly where we're headed, trying to get to. The construction time, one would like to think we could do it in 4 to 6 months, but one of the concerns that we have to be aware of is we can't disrupt the schools. And so particularly with the Friendship School, and there's no way to not have those buses drop those kids off at that location. So we're going to probably have to have the contractor work around some of their schedules, like when they're off for 2 or 3 weeks at a time, like maybe next, I think April, or if we could get started in November, they could get some done during the Christmas time to try to get around that. That's clearly one of the big concerns that the schools have, as well as the residents, is how much disruption are we going to have. And school's got to go on. So we've got to deal with that. So it could go as long as 8 months. There's been estimates of that when you start trying to lay out all of the other things that have to take place.
Okay, thank you. In closing, if I could, we do have in our audience Chris Brown, who's on the school board. Ms. Brown, if you could, I think one of the keys successes to this project will be the encouragement of staff and students to park in the parking lots. I'm just going to put that on the record that is something that I would encourage greatly. If you want to comment. Okay. I realize that, but I know that you talk to a lot of people. And if you could encourage that, it would really help for this. Thank you. I knew you had.
Thank you. Councilmember Bilbray.
Thank you. Mr. Levine, thank you for your presentation. Councilmember Bragg's already touched on the stop signs, of course, but just a comment on the crosswalks. Is there a reason why we're not giving them a little bit of a increase in height in order to slow traffic down?
An elevated crosswalk? We hadn't discussed it as part of the plan. I've gotten beat up so much on the 13th Street one, I have shied away from that.
Well, just because it didn't work the first time doesn't mean that we shouldn't keep trying it.
Yeah.
Because alternates on traffic calming, especially with the state mandate of reducing CO2 emissions, we need to be really careful about putting in new stop signs that are 7 times more inefficient than just stopping, or it pollutes 7 times more CO2 in the atmosphere than not stopping at all. And raised crosswalks are a tool in order to basically do the same thing that a stop sign would do, except for not stopping and be more efficient. So that's the only comment I really have. We really need to be careful about adding new stop signs. It's something to put back in stop signs, but to add more stop signs with the mandate for CO2 reductions, we need to be very careful.
I'd
Thank you.
certainly be willing to talk to the engineer and traffic engineer about those options, if that's council wishes.
Thank you, Councilmember Bilbray. Councilmember Spriggs?
My, my primary comment was picked up at the very tail end of my colleague, Councilmember Bragg's comments made to Chris Brown. I think one of the primary, there's two major concerns that seem to have come out of the community. One is the traffic flow, again, touched on by Councilmember Bragg, and whether people are going to really pull off and use those, that area that's created, which is very good. The design, by the way, if it works according to design, this is going to be great. I mean, it'll be a great addition to Imperial Beach. It's very attractive. We really should be proud of this kind of a design, and I think if we all do everything we can to work with it, it's going to be, you know, we'll look back a couple years from now and say, wow, this is really a great improvement. It's always the transition, the planning and the transition that's hardest on everybody. Having said that, I really think your thought about using community service officers to help the first week or so at least, they're going to get everybody who's involved in the commute during a 1 week period or several day period or whatever it might be. And that is going to get everyone focused on what the traffic flow should be. Avoiding U-turns right in the middle, you know, which is going to be dangerous. Trying to set up the traffic flow and the patterns and the habits right in the beginning that'll make the design achieve what it was intended to. That to me is real important, the software part of this, not just the hardware. Related to that is the parking thing. That's big issue number 2, or maybe that's issue number 1. And I'm not sure, you know, that our wonderful colleague and neighbor Chris may need some support in working something out to encourage some creative parking solutions off the street for the Mar Vista and students and staff whose parking is to some extent displaced by this project. To me, that's a real important thing, that we find a solution there so that
There is ample parking on site. That's the challenge that we and the school has agreed to take on, is getting the people or the students and teachers educated to use the facilities that are on the property.
that's what I'm saying, and I think that that's a city and school mutual concern. The city on behalf of the residents and safety issues, the school on behalf of it's their property and their students and their staff. So finding a way to incentivize folks to park or disincentivize them to not park. The permit issue is a disincentive because it means citations. But we need to really be creative about finding some positive incentives for people to park off the street and use the lots that are the parking areas that are available. And that's all I'm saying is let's try to find some software solutions to that so that we don't have to go to an enforcement approach. Not the subject of tonight's discussion, but certainly something to be avoided if we can find another solution. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, everybody. With that, I don't see any more comments here. First, I do want to thank the Public Works Department of the city, and then the community, the residents, and also our school districts, and then Circulate San Diego, used to be Move San Diego, I think, that participated in this. This is a very collaborative process. And the thing about our democracy that's great, when everyone leaves not getting exactly everything they want, we've probably done a pretty good job. And I know no one's getting everything they want And, but I think we've had a very stakeholder driven process. And the word community for me implies that our community includes our school districts. We have two, and it includes our school board members, it includes the parents, it includes the students as well as the residents. And then everyone in Imperial Beach, all of us who drive that. And I rode my bike down after watching my son surf last night. And it's a very awkward, odd street. You go down that hill and that big open space, and all the kids on skateboards are either in the middle of the street, bombing down the hill on their bikes or skateboards, and they go in that big open space and they run the stop line, et cetera. So I think this is a really good solution just to the safety issues. More importantly, I think the aesthetic appeal as well. And then finally, I know I've talked to this school district about this, but I know every school district, I know we have the PTA member from Mar Vista High School here as well. I'm sure we'd all love to figure out a way to remove all those chain link fences around all those nice buildings and figure out how to make those I have this idea that maybe those chain link fences around all the parking lots somehow psychologically might restrict people from going there because you think it's not open. In fact, when I park at Mar Vista, I do park on the street because I don't think I can use those parking lots. So I think there's probably a lot more from a design sort of element and just even thinking about how people use space that we can do just to sort of more smartly get kids to park, and more importantly, get kids to ride their bikes. I'm not sure, I didn't drive my car to Mar Vista. I lived a few blocks away, but get these kids to walk and ride their bikes. So I think that's one thing. Give them incentives to ride bikes, and I know we've already done that with the elementary school district. So anyway, I want to thank everybody for playing their part. I want to thank everybody for not being perfectly happy with everything that happened. It's not supposed to be easy. There's a reason why they're called negotiations, and there's a process, and we did have a process, but I think it's a real model one for IB. And there was a lot of give and take, there's a lot of discussion, and at the end of the day, we're all gonna put our arms around each other and give each other big hugs and say thank you that we really had a collaborative democratic process. So I look forward to moving this forward. So with that, I'm gonna make sure I word this correctly. Is there a motion to proceed, to proceed with the option proposed plan as outlined today? Great. Thank you very much. Please vote.
Motion carried unanimously.
Great. After that, something even more interesting and collaborative and transparent, by the way. Item number 5.2, fiscal year 2016 and fiscal year 2017 budget, and Administrative Services Director Bradley will give a report. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight is the third of really a series of four community outreach / council meetings regarding the fiscal year 2016 and 17 budgets. As you recall, on April 23rd, we had a outdoor open house gathering where we brought the community together with council and staff and got input from the community. On May 13th, we had a workshop in which I went through a pretty exhaustive analysis or review of the budget. And then, of course, we have tonight. On June 17th, which will be our next council meeting, if all goes well, I'm hopeful to bring the proposed budget to the city council and have it adopted as our final budget by passing a resolution. So that's basically the schedule of where we're at. I didn't plan on, I see a lot of familiar faces, and like I said, at the workshop 3 weeks ago, I went through a pretty exhaustive analysis of the budget and all the sections. I really didn't plan on doing that tonight, but I just wanted to point out a couple things that have changed slightly, and then perhaps open it up to questions and we can dive in deeper from there. Just wanted to point out that, as I said, there were some changes after the workshop, and even between the information you have in your packet and what I'm showing here. You know, this is an evolving process, and daily I think I get someone walking in my office, I have to make a few changes. But I just want to point out, this is the summary sheet that you see in the document. And it's a really important page because along the bottom, you see that it illustrates that our general fund, the expenditures being on the left here and the revenues being on the right, is still balanced. The numbers of 17.1 million might ring familiar. That was the similar numbers we had in the presentation I did at the workshop. So the numbers haven't changed. Along the top, once again, the operating expenditures citywide is around 28, 29 million. And then over to the right here, we have our CIP budget. Once again, these numbers haven't changed a little bit, although there are a couple things in the CIP that did change, and I want to point those out. Once again, fiscal year 16 is somewhat heavily loaded versus 17, but once again, with CIPs, these are multi-year projects. And so we might be starting this and budgeted it in 16, but it's going to carry on over to 17. I wanted to point out something that Councilman Member Bragg had brought up, and it has to do with our fund balances with regards to gas tax and Transnet. And so I'm flipping forward to the fund balance sheet. And so we did make a few modifications in how we're programming our street projects in 16 and 17, because as you can see, this is a beginning fund balance for these two items that in which a question was brought up on gas tax and Transnet, and they're relatively high. So what we've done is we've strategically designed the use of these funds over the next 2 years based on the CIP projects that you guys have been reviewing and approving. But you can see as we carry forward that these fund balances come down quite a bit. There's still some funds there, which is nice, but we wanted to make sure that those funds were being used and not subject to some issues. Another item I wanted to bring up is down in my notes. I see note A here. We are expecting, or I'm sorry, we just received a repayment from the former redevelopment agency, and this was a loan that the city had to the former RDA to the tune of $1.1 million. We still have outstanding about another $1 million, so we should expect another payment next June or May. But I just wanted to point out that 20% of that is designated to go to the housing authority per the law, and then the other portions we have split out here, 527,000. I did program as a proposal into the RCS, the Regional Communication System fund balance, and the remainder 389 I put into the Parks fund balance. So let me just move up here because this is different than what I had before. So this public safety communication fund is an item that we're going to have to purchase in the near future, and we wanted to make sure we had enough funds there. So my proposal was to use some of those funds that we were getting back from the loan repayment and putting it into this fund to be ready for that acquisition. Of course, would be coming back to council for that when time comes. The other portion that I put down here in the park maintenance fund. I don't know if you recall, several months back, I had told you that there was a resolution about how we should be funding this park maintenance. And there was a little ambiguity in terms of how much that fund balance should be. And so I thought this might be an opportunity to actually, I wasn't sure if it was this or this. And by adding a few extra dollars here, I think I've solved whatever that answer or whatever your desire was at the time. So once again, this is something we can address. But for the proposal, I did go ahead and put that in here. I will be coming back in 2 weeks with the resolution to adopt the budget, and we can either amend that resolution if that's not where those funds should go. Another area, something that's a little bit new that we've added to the budget is there's an actual graphical presentation of this capital projects throughout the city. So there's 2 pages here in which we've identified on the map where the CIP projects are throughout the city. And so this is a part of the document now, while before it was simply a handout. And you see there's 2 pages. And so it gives you some idea, or actually a really good presentation of, the scope of all the work that is programmed within this budget. But those were just the changes that occurred from our last meeting, and I did not have uh, anything further to present. I certainly open it up for questions.
Do we have any public discussion? Public comments?
If I could just make the comment, Mr. Mayor. Not everyone here has been at the workshop or the open air, open house. And I just think we owe it to the public, and what was at the open air, open house and what was at the workshop are not minuted. Okay, so the financial condition of the city has not really been put on the record in a summary kind of way in a public forum like this. So, Mr. Bradley, this is not a criticism. I'm just saying we are in a public meeting right now. We do need to step back to sort of the orbital level and give maybe just the big picture, a couple minutes. What kind of condition is Imperial Beach in financially? You know, where are we? Where are we heading? Are we in trouble? Are we doing well? What is our general cash flow situation or our cash balance situation? Big picture, don't take a lot of time, but I think we owe it to the public to start off with that, and then we can get into the details with public comment or anything that the council members want to add.
I guess I'm uncomfortable. I want to make sure we're clear on process, and the process is that city staff make a presentation, then we have public comments, and then I think the councils, as they please, can ask questions. But I'm uncomfortable with having council members direct before public discussion, because that's our process. Direct them to address certain topics without making sure the public has an opportunity to, again, even address this issue. So I'd like to make sure that we have public comment, if any public comment, and then we can go to council members.
I'm not asking a question, Mr. Mayor. I am saying that the process to encourage public comment and to inform public comment hasn't happened yet. Mr. Bradley, knowing what he knows about all the details that we've covered already, jumped right into some changes to those specifics without providing the overview that has been provided on during the workshop. And I'm just saying that we need to he needs to rewind and start off with the big picture. And then that's it. Then at least people know. To ask the public to comment when they haven't really heard that big picture yet, based on whatever anyone can get from the files back there, or may have taken the great initiative to read all this stuff online, I think is not the way we normally work.
Thank you for your feedback. I'd like to just to see if there's any public discussion. I don't think we have any cards. Do we have any cards?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you. Now we can have council discussion. And Mr. Spriggs, I see you've put your name here. And if you'd like to make sure you're clear that you have questions or comments, to direct city staff to answer those questions or provide a general overview.
Mayor, you're not getting the point. The point is that I am expressing not a question. Yes, we can ask. I've got plenty of questions to ask. I'm saying that Mr. Bradley should give an overview. That's all, as a matter of putting on record the condition of the city. That hasn't happened. That's all that I'm saying. And you know, if we had had this conversation offline ahead of time, it wouldn't even be an issue. I'm sure he would have done it because that's the way he usually does it.
Okay, are you, again, please, you can please direct the staff to give an overview and then ask questions. Great, thank you. I wasn't sure if we were having a discussion first and then you were going to direct the staff to do that, so wasn't clear.
Okay.
Is everybody as confused as? Do you see what I'm saying?
Perhaps,
I'm
Mr.
ready.
Bradley, you could give us a brief overview like you have done at the workshop and at
Yeah,
our
and
last meeting. Mr. Spriggs, you weren't there. And Mr. Bradley did give an overview.
Our last council meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I do apologize. At the workshop, I did go through an exhaustive presentation of the budget, but I also kind of hear what I'm hearing from you is let's get the big picture of where the city is at, and I'm certainly prepared to provide that. Um, One of the really good things about the city of Imperial Beach is their financial health. The city not only does not have any debt, they are able to match their operating expenses with operating revenues. I've spent quite a bit of time with city staff and particularly city manager Andy Hall and looked at the revenues and the expenses to look at what kind of risk the city runs if something were to occur. And as we analyze all the different revenue sources, we realize that they are really solid sources of income. And within the budget, we have that detailed in terms of we get money from the port, we have certain money from franchise fees, and the general fund in its entirety has sources of revenue that I'm very confident will continue and to continue to grow at some marginal rate. Which is really good because we also have other sources of revenue that I believe are going to grow at even a greater rate because of the activity and the direction of council. We're seeing developments occurring. We just saw another development today, and all of that comes into play when it comes into property taxes, when it comes into transient occupancy tax, sales tax. And so the city has these great opportunities, and I know we've discussed what might happen soon at Ninth and Palm. That's just another opportunity. So not only do we have these solid sources of revenue that seem pretty consistent, I believe we have these other sources of revenue that are going to grow at a higher rate. And that's important because when you look at the other side of the financial statement, we're looking at expenses. And as you know, costs tend to rise. We have a third of our general fund budget is made up of the sheriff's contract, right? I mean, that's a very important part of our city operations. Another third are, salaries, if you will. We spend a portion on our fire department, but these are vital resources and that provide vital functions for the city. And they tend to experience rises in costs over time, healthcare, retirement, and those two items, even though we get one bill from the sheriff, are embedded in that contract, right, for the sheriff. So as we experience those increases, it's comforting to know I'm in a situation at the helm of the finances of a city that has some offsetting revenues that seem to be continuing quite well. When we look at, oh, go ahead.
If I could interrupt, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind. Mr. Bradley, at our workshop and in other previous conversations, one of the things that we talked about, Mr. Spriggs, I hope you get some comfort from this, because I did, was the fact that grants are not factored into this because we don't know if we're going to get them or not. And some of your projections were very conservative. So to me, that was comforting to know that, we don't count on that grant money, and quite often it's large sums of money, but they're not built into our budget.
Yeah, and I think if when I showed the CIP projects in 2016 being heavily weighted versus 2017, that's because we plugged into 2016 grants we know we're going to get. We've applied and we've been awarded, so we knew those were going to come in. And the 2017 looked kind of barren. It's because we know there are grants out there we're going to apply for, but we just haven't had the assurance that we're going to get them. So we're just going to hold back. And then when we do get them, we'll come back to you and we'll do a budget adjustment and then load those in. So there's quite a few projects that we've identified that we're going to use our own internal savings or resources that will probably be offset by future grants. And those monies would be able to be retained for other type projects. And I talked a little about revenue and expenses for the general fund and how I believe we're really in a solid place. Not having any debt is a wonderful thing. The other chart that is presented on the screen, which is in the budget, talks about our savings or our reserves. And if you look along the left side here, you can see the different different accounts at which we have these savings or reserves. And the general fund on its own has several different accounts. One of them, we call it unassigned. I really just call it our operating reserve, if you will. And it's at $5.9 million, which is about 34%. So that's about 3 months worth of expenses for the general fund. And that's good. A lot of communities have about 1 month of reserves. We have nearly 3. And if things got really tough, some of those expenses we could hold off on, and we could extend that even further. And I'm talking about just if something really, really tough happened. But that's 34%. So that's nice. We have that set aside. We also have another fund of economic uncertainty, as we call it, which is about 10% of our general fund expenditure. So that adds a whole nother month, if you will. And then we have items that we have put assigned as strategic capital or public works. And remember, these are the monies that you guys are using to program the CIP projects that are in the budget. And then again, I probably went over this a little fast, but we are going to have an expenditure where it comes to public safety and the communications. And we wanted to make sure we funded that rather than having to go out and get a loan for that item. And so that's coming up. In addition, the city is also funded quite healthy. This isn't something you see at all municipalities where you have a vehicle replacement fund. So you're already thinking ahead of what vehicles you need to replace, and you're setting aside our savings. For technology, we have some money set aside for future needs to improve our technology infrastructure. Facility maintenance as well. We have some money, and we've looked at all our facilities, and we're able to say, where are we and where we need to be in the future. Risk management. This is also additional reserves beyond what we need to have for claims we already know about. So this is an additional funds that we have set aside. And then once again, I brought up park maintenance because there was a resolution to establish this fund, and I want to make sure that we follow what the direction of the council was. There are some other funds that beyond that are also used to facilitate CIP projects and street maintenance with regards to gas tax and Transnet. And then we have, as we kind of finalize the former redevelopment agency activities, successor agency activities, we have some bond funds that are still available that are programmed to be used for various projects. And then, of course, we have a small amount of money in the housing authority. The final fund balance is in our sewer fund. And we've talked a bit about that in terms of CIP projects that we're going to program over the next couple years now, and how that fund balance, as you see in this chart, is declining. It's kind of a never-ending battle and trying to make sure we keep that fund healthy, that you don't want to raise rates too much, right? So when we've had those discussions in the past. But I think and hopefully that gives a general overview for those that were not at the workshop. The city is fiscally sound, but then we're a city, and we don't generate a lot of revenue from a lot of sources, and so we have to be very frugal and fiscally conservative when it comes to how we spend our money from year to year.
First of all, great job. When I first came into the city council 2.5 years ago, people were saying, wow, and this went for everybody, all cities, things weren't great. Where we're at now, I'm proud of where we're at, and I could see the numbers. It's pretty clear, and thank you for doing a great job making it clear. And IB's doing really well. We have to take care of public safety, obviously, infrastructure, obviously, and I think we're doing a great job doing that. And then we go take care of everything else in between, all the way down to programs for kids and seniors. So I'm proud to be a citizen of IB. I'm proud to be sitting up here, and thank you. Thank the rest of my colleagues.
Any additional comments? First, thank you very much. And, it's great to see an article in the media lauding Imperial Beach for a transparent and very readable, sort of an easy to follow budget, even though it's a very complicated budget. So this is I think the best process in the history of Imperial Beach. You've done a great job in working with the community and the city staff and our council. And I wasn't here at the budget hearing, but it's really, really important that governments really make it easy for residents to understand where the money's being spent. And then to give feedback on that, I thought the open house was brilliant. I think that idea of taking plans to the people rather than having just expecting people to come to a council chamber is brilliant. So thanks to all the city staff and the council for really supporting that and participating as well. So anyway, I think if I'm clear, we're not really approving any motions here. We gave feedback. And again, it's great to see a balanced budget. It's really great to come into office and be able to really explain to the public, like, we are a bare bones city. There is no fat here to cut. We've gone through that process in the past, and it's really great to see balanced budget. It's really good to understand where our tax dollars are going. And it's really good to see that our city staff are committed to raising money through grants from the private sector, from foundations, and from public agencies to really augment city services and programs. So thank you very much. All right, with that, we move on to item 5.3, code compliance presentation. And Building Officer Holden will give a code compliance presentation. Just to clear on process here, the process is the city staff will provide a report, then we'll open up to public comment if there is any public comment, and then we'll have the opportunity for city council to provide input and comments.
Use the arrows. Use this way forward, this way back.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It's a pleasure to be here. It's the first time. I am Jack Holden, your building official. So I have a short presentation for you. Code compliance in Imperial Beach. This is a recommendation that you receive this presentation, which I hope you do, and then have input and give us some direction as to our code compliance activities. We further recommend that perhaps the city council can direct the city manager to organize a workshop to further discuss any issues that this presentation might present. Our rationale is our code compliance is consistent with our mission. We want to provide a safe, small town family atmosphere, and it's also consistent with the city's neighborhood revitalization strategy, which is grassroots and a community effort. The City Council has the following options after receiving the report: receive and file the staff report and provide direction to the city manager to take specific action regarding code compliance, or request additional information if necessary, an additional report. Things change. Our ordinances are in place now, and we're really looking at some of those specific items that we'd like to address. Code compliance is a part of the Community Development Department, and I, as the building official, manage this, one full-time and one part-time code compliance officer. At this point, I'd like to introduce them in case you've never met them. And they're in the back, and they've waited, they worked all day long, and here they are. Sam Guevara and Leslie Seifert are, go ahead and stand up. Nobody, they hide in the back. And I appreciate the work they do. They're really absolutely wonderful staff people and work with the public under stressful conditions quite often. And I'm really proud of the work that they do. Primarily, our complaints our code cases are initiated on a complaint basis. A case file is open for every complaint, and every complaint is investigated. And we're having an issue right now on some of these things, and we'll get into that later. Generally, our process is drive-by inspection. We validate the complaint, and if the violations are verified, a notification process begins. We try to be fairly friendly, and we have a process that is sort of soft-gloved. We send a courtesy letter, a request for inspection, and notice of violation is sent to the owner, and depending on the circumstances, the nature of the violation. Sometimes we skip a courtesy letter if it's life safety. If no response to our letters and communications, We have the ability for an administrative citation as a tool to gain compliance or just simply get their attention from the property owners. In rare instances, nuisance abatements must be ordered by the city council per our municipal code to abate these violations when they absolutely refuse to comply. Here's some case studies. Here's a particular property in Imperial Beach before. Here's just some materials the neighbors complained. I can't imagine why, but they did. Here's the front yard. And afterwards, here's the front yard, the backyard. Front yard again, front yard again. Big difference. Backyard, I don't know where all that stuff went, but it's not in the yard anymore. Landscaping, just a visual type of thing we do. We receive a complaint. This is what it looked like. I believe this is on 9th. The building, you can see the building is in disrepair. And after the same property, clean up and repairs. The streets, the grass, the boulevard there, the building itself, so you can see the differences there. Complaint, garbage collecting in simple sidewalk void. We just contacted the owner, and a very simple fix, just a little bit, did so much to improve the safety of the sidewalks. People aren't falling in those holes. And a little bit of planting, water, drought resistant type planting, and you can notice the car didn't even move. Okay, some homes look all right like this one. It's not bad. They kept their Christmas lights up. That's fine. But what the problem was is a wall heater was defective and there was no CO detector. State law requires that. So a complaint was filed. The wall heater was inoperative for 27 days. The owners didn't work on it. The tenants actually became sick from the carbon monoxide, and this one was generated by a fire or an ambulance response to the house. So the owner and the property manager both were cited because they both had responsibility. They appealed, and the violations were upheld. And the most important thing, the corrections were made in the house so that now the house is safe to occupy. Here's another one. Some properties are poorly maintained. You can see some of the problems there, but it has the storage in the front yard. It's a violation of the municipal code. The house is obviously lacking maintenance. We wonder about what's going on inside as well. But no complaint has been filed, so this condition may remain until a complaint is received. Our first priority is always life safety. We don't just do visual stuff, it's life safety information. The case is primarily initiated on a complaint basis. We don't go driving around looking for things. If we see something that's egregious, we will take action, but generally we wait for a complaint. The notices are, I think, fair and progressive, from a courtesy letter up and including a determination of a public nuisance and or abatement by the city, which is the most intrusive action the city can take. So where do we go from here? Neighborhood revitalization, focused enforcement on rental properties and or absentee landlords, which we have quite a few. I've heard up to 60% as rental. Residential enforcement improvement by area and neighborhood, or perhaps a focused enforcement on businesses along commercial corridors. We don't do just simply residential, we do commercial properties as well. That includes sign, code enforcement, and that sort of item. That's it.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, is there any public comments?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Councilmember Patton. Did you put your, or maybe I didn't. Oh, okay, it's from the last time. Okay, I got, it's rapidly filling up. So I'm gonna give you, you get extra points for being from Sunny Slope.
First of all, thank you for the code compliant officers out here. I know it's probably not too many thank yous, but you probably hopefully get some thank yous for what you do, because obviously I saw some yards that were cleaned up pretty nicely. And also, you know, we have our school board member Chris Brown, Dick Pilgrim over here, who also are some eyes and ears of our city as community volunteers. Not so much code compliance, but their eyes. And I thank you for being here as well. Thank you for the presentation. I liked your tone, and hopefully when I call you, I get that same tone, and that's what I like. Some flexibility. I think we need to be flexible. We listen to people, find out what's going on, and I think we work with the public. We'll get better results, as you well know. So, thank you for what you do. That's all.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Spriggs?
Thanks a lot. Very good presentation. Exactly, I think the kind of thing that we were looking for in terms of what is our current approach to code enforcement. Would you mind putting up your last slide, which had those questions and issues on it? There we go. Where do we go from here? Was this intended to be a session where we provide have some discussion and thoughts, Mr. Mayor, about that?
I think absolutely. I think it'd be great to have some input from city council members.
Okay.
And I don't think this is the last time we have to talk
Right.
about this. So.
Right, but just some initial kinds of ideas. Somebody, I think, needs to look at neighborhood revitalization in terms of the good, the bad, the ugly, the experience, what we've learned from efforts in the past, and perhaps in the next time we have this presentation, we could have some exploration of that as an approach to community improvement. I mean, Imperial Beach, we all know Imperial Beach is really a great place to live already, and it's getting better all the time. And having a consistent approach to code enforcement that's consistent with where the city is going as a great place to live for our families and kids is, I think, something we really, as a city council, have kind of an obligation to do. We can't just leave it to you guys to figure out what approach to take. So this is great that you've got these questions. Where do we go from here and all that? So neighborhood revitalization is a comprehensive approach to improving neighborhoods, and we really need to have, I think, a little bit more discussion about that and some information. We've had programs that have supported homeowners before, Clean and Green being one of them. Your recommendations may be either now or at some future point about, since we do have some reserve funds, maybe in connection with neighborhood revitalization or some other comprehensive approach or strategy, we could be utilizing some of those funds for some sort of a Clean and Green or Clean and Green 2.0. Something to help owner occupants, especially, move forward with their properties and improve their property values and their living conditions and that sort of thing. The rental property approach. Rental properties are not always absentee, but certainly not usually on the premises, maybe not even in Imperial Beach, but they are commercial. They are revenue generators. And so I think bulleting that as a sort of separate item for attention is worth doing, because one would expect that the owners of rental property would not only have the responsibility to keep it up for the people living there, but also have the means to maintain, their property. By area, neighborhood, this gets into, I'm just throwing out some ideas. This gets into the possibility of having volunteer community participation by neighborhood in coming up with their own thoughts about what the standards ought to be, what's generally in a broad range okay, and what's generally in a broad range not okay. To me, that would be the ideal situation, that it's neighborhood based, it's local, it's got lots of people involved in it, and lots of communication and maybe peer pressure that takes the load off of you. If the neighborhood is a little bit more, each neighborhood is a little more organized. And certainly businesses along commercial corridors. I mean, this is where our economic heartbeat is, the commercial corridors. And we really do need to devote some time, it seems to me, because of, that's what our visitors see. That's where our residents go for their shopping. That's where our sales tax revenue comes from. So I think it's very good that you've listed that as a bullet item. And, we can't possibly ask you to do all these at the same time, but I think we need a discussion about what the priorities ought to be. And this is a good opening opportunity to start thinking about these things. So thank you very much.
Councilmember Bragg, do you mind if we have a request from the public to speak? Would you mind if, we have Margaret Williamson? Is she here? Item 5.3? Yes. And remember you have, if you could come sit down and give your name and address, and then remember you have 3 minutes.
Okay, my name is Margaret Williamson, and I reside at 740 Hickory Court, Imperial Beach. And I've been at that residence for about over 40 years. And I live right across the street from a home that has been in horrible disrepair. And this has been going on, I know there's records going back to 2007. And I know the city has worked hard. And I have to compliment these ladies back here because I know they've been working on it, but it's just going on and on and on, and nothing is getting done. This house has a roof that's falling in. This house has dead cars in the yard. There's trash. The vegetation has grown up and engulfed the house. The windows are covered. It's a fire hazard. And I'm just here tonight to ask you what is going to happen, if anything. What is going on? I know it went to your city attorney, and I thought there was going to be something about this house tonight. And that's the reason I'm here, because I want to encourage you guys to move forward with this. This is really a blight. And the guy in there, he's a nice guy, but he's done nothing. And I know you've given him many citations. There's been fines, nothing is going on. That's it. I want the question answered. What is going on? What is going to happen?
Great, thank you, Mrs. Williamson. And I just want to make sure for legal reasons, this is sort of a specific issue about a code compliance possible case. So if legally, city attorney, if we can actually talk about this now, or does this have to be tabled for actually an agenda's item?
No, I believe staff, I'm personally not involved in it. Staff's been working on it, so I'll let them speak to it, but I believe it's something that's going to come before the council, and council shouldn't talk about it tonight, because if it's a hearing that's going to come before the council, you will hear about it at that time.
Okay, so that means the city staff shouldn't talk about it either, or?
They can tell you if it is an ongoing case and
Okay.
it's going to come before the council.
Fine, thank
That's
you.
what they
Okay.
can.
And if you would, Mayor and Council, it is an ongoing case. And as Jack mentioned, only in the most, as a last option, do we come to the City Council seeking action. And this is a case where that will be the case. So other than to say it is coming before you soon, that's all we're prepared to say.
May I say something? In 2011, you came before the city council in 2011, and it got dropped. Nothing has happened.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for your feedback and input.
Yeah, I want to mention to the council, this is one reason I wanted to make this presentation, is to essentially warm you up to this. This is the most intrusive thing the city can do, is to go and abate a problem like this. So we do have 2 cases that are going to be presented in the next few weeks. You have to put all the information together, and it's quite a package you'll be receiving. And then you have to decide whether the city is going to take action. Neighbors can't take action. It's going to be our responsibility and your decision how much we do and what we do.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Bragg.
Thank you. Thank you for having this on our agenda. I'm going to go to your recommendation right away. I would support a workshop on this. This is critically important to our city. And I remember when we formed our neighborhood revitalization groups and we divided the community up into 6 neighborhoods. I think, Mr. Levine, you're probably the only other person in the room who was there at the time. But it was extremely successful. And we would focus all of our efforts in one neighborhood for maybe 4 or 5 months and then move on and get done what we could. But there was like a laundry list of everything in that neighborhood that we would focus on. And it was the same in each neighborhood, although each neighborhood did have some of its own idiosyncrasies that we looked at as well. This is critical to the home values in our community. And Mr. Patton and I were sitting here discussing, an event that we used to have with IB Beautiful was the home front beautification contest. And that was extremely successful. People proudly displayed their little, computer generated certificates. There was a list of the homes that won the certificates, and people really competed. As Mr. Patton said, he really, really spruced up. He got 3rd place. See, he remembers that. He remembers that. So that was an extremely successful event in our community that maybe it's time to bring that back. And then I think Mr. Spriggs spoke about the Clean and Green program. I just want to reiterate with that, to have the inclusion of some dollars that would also offset any costs that people were incurring for water use reduction. I think that this is a really timely topic right now. And, one of the things that we have to realize is that we're all in this together. You can't, so when it's neighbor against neighbor, it's really not what we want. We want a more inclusive environment. I have been the subject of a code compliance. We're kind of laughing. It happened during the campaign season, and I got a little note from the city of Imperial Beach saying that they had a code compliance issue against me, and I thought, well, what have I done? And I thought, who generated this? And Leslie came out and was very professional. And a neighbor of mine she was the issue of a code compliance case, I think turned in every neighbor on the block. I don't know that because it is anonymous. Leslie never did tell me that. But my issue was I had a TV in my backyard. And Leslie said, if you put that TV in your garage, I'll consider this case closed. So thank you for that, not just for me personally, but I think that that's the way she appears on the job every day of the week. So thank you for the way you handled that. But again, I would support a workshop on this effort. It's too important to not have a workshop and to find what the tasks are that we're going to be. The one that Mr. Spriggs brought up as well, the business enforcement, that is something that we have grappled with for years. And what ends up happening is that if you just ask one business, to maybe it's a signage issue, then they say, well, why are you picking on me? So we have to be uniform in our approach. We have to let them know, we are going to be doing this, because nobody wants to feel singled out. I certainly didn't when I had my case. So it's got to be uniform. It's got to be fair. Thank you.
And I do want to point out, last year we had over 680 some cases just for code compliance, and building permits was 640 or something like that. So there's already a lot of work. What we'd like to do is focus our work to be more efficient, because just with 1.5 staff, we have the realities of what we can do, and what we want to do is be more efficient with the time that we do spend and direct it more to what the council wants.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that excellent presentation. I love the before and after. It's really good to see that government can make a difference and that we've got a proactive code of compliance and building department staff that actually can really demonstrate there's been a significant impact, positive impact on the community and on property owners and renters. And also I'd like to thank you, Jack, for the City Hall revitalization program. It's just wonderful to see how the building department, if you haven't had a chance to go into the building department in the hallway and see the entrance of the building department, it's absolutely awesome. And it sets the tone for the kind of city hall that we'd like to have. And I think Ed Villa's also worked to revitalize our own neighborhood at City Hall as well. And it's a process, but I think it also sets the tone of what kind of city we are. I know those of us who are raised in Imperial Beach know that we have a city when people like to talk, we like to talk it out. We like to sit down and chat and work things out. And I think that's the process that I see happening. There's been a change and a shift. And I think this idea of being more proactive and strategic and equitable or fair, so that we're really thinking strategically with the community about how we work together to improve our neighborhoods and our city, and with the business community as well, and possibly even the investment community. So we're identifying opportunities to turn those. And tonight we looked at that. We're turning a dilapidated property essentially on the beach. It's one of the most prominent buildings into a beautiful, stunning, architecturally significant building. We're doing the same thing across just over on Evergreen with the City Mark project. So I think we did the same thing with the new hotel. So I think we're doing the same thing with Ninth and Palm. So I think there's two types of processes, but I think we need to do all of the above. And I think the more we can look at that and have a workshop about it to get the community more engaged, and also look for opportunities for fundraising, to get grants for this, and potentially even use grants to get additional staff capacity or part-time project assistance on that, to help even with the process. I think would be great, because I think there are organizations and agencies that actually do this a lot. And I think the more we can have facilitation will be helpful. So thank you very much. And then just one final thing, I get concerned about a vendetta-based approach. And I know that all of us have seen those and talked to residents who feel like they're being singled out by a neighbor who's just mad at them. And they go, well, what about that? And I know this city, I think a lot of folks say, well, it's unfair that I got this compliance effort. What about the AT&T building? And I think that's something that we need to think about, make sure that we're treating all our stakeholders in the city equally and fairly, not just potentially low income or sort of not so powerful homeowner versus our corporate members and stakeholders in the city as well. So thank you very much. And with that, I don't think we have a motion here to entertain. I think we've given feedback and direction. We have, right? Okay. Thank you very
Mayor,
much.
could I just say one thing? I don't often get a chance to give commendations to our staff, and since I'm leaving, I'd like to say that our building official, Jack Holden, couldn't be a better fit, I think, for the city of Imperial Beach. And Councilmember Pat made a comment about I hope that's the type of voice I hear on the other line. That's constantly Jack's demeanor, and it trickles down into his staff. Leslie and Sam are two of perhaps the best code compliance officers I've ever experienced. Their demeanor, their good nature is exemplary, and they do a job that I believe is the most thankless job in any city government. And they do it with a smile on their face and the ability to diffuse situations. When I first started here, every council meeting had code compliance actions on every agenda. We were assessing civil penalties left and right. And by virtue of actions to be able to get compliance on almost 98% of cases, we've eliminated the times that you see those cases, except for the few rare instances. And it's a statement to those people as individuals and professionals. And I just wanted to thank them for their efforts. And that's all I wanted to say about that.
Great. Thanks for that feedback.
Mr. Mayor,
Are we continuing?
the one item I think suggested by Councilmember Bragg in terms of follow-up would be a workshop on this to talk about it in more detail. Is that a kind of consensus?
Yeah, that's what we just talked about. Okay. Yeah, that was what we summarized. Good. All right, now, make sure I'm going down correctly. Okay, item 5.4. This is the last item on the agenda. Adoption of resolution number 2015-7588, accepting the Imperial Beach Jurisdiction Runoff Management Program. By the way, this is the longest title of anything I've read so far since my becoming elected as mayor. And rescission of 2008 Jurisdictional Urban Runoff Management Program, Resolution 2015-75, accepting the San Diego Bay Water Quality Improvement Plan, and Resolution 2015-7590, accepting the Tijuana River Water Quality Improvement Plan, and authorizing the Public Works Director to sign and forward these documents to the San Diego Regional Water Quality Control Board in accordance with the Regional Stormwater Permit, R9 2013-001. Environmental Program Manager Helmer will give a presentation on the item. Thank you.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. The reason it's a long title is because there's actually 3 resolutions you guys are passing. Because that's over the last 2 years. The Environmental Division and Public Works have been working with city staff and with all of the other agencies in San Diego County to update our stormwater management programs. That's in response to the new stormwater permit issued by the Regional Water Quality Control Board. At the last city council meeting, we had a discussion on these plans. This is the the updated jurisdictional stormwater management program for our city, and our 2 brand new water quality improvement plans. One's for the Tijuana River and one's for the San Diego Bay watershed. Tonight, we're going to ask you to accept these reports, authorize the Public Works Director to sign off on these stormwater management programs to submit to the Regional Water Quality Control Board in accordance with the stormwater permit. These are requirements for our city and requirements of all the other cities in San Diego County to be doing. I'm open for comments and questions. If you guys have any follow-ups from our last discussion that we had at the city council meeting. And also I want to note that we have Bryn Evans, who is our consultant for the Tijuana River Water Quality Improvement Plan. So if you have specific comments related to water quality improvement plans, that's a follow-up from the last meeting. We also have him as a resource. So I'll take any questions for you guys.
I guess, again, I'm really clear. We having, so this is designed as a question and answer period first? Not a presentation?
It's,
or you have?
There is no presentation for
Why
this.
don't we, given the past comments and the fact that 2 council members weren't here last time, why don't we do the overview? And that way we can, then we have some substantive issues to ask questions about.
All right. In 2013, the Regional Water Quality Control Board issued a new stormwater permit. This is consistent with kind of the permitting that the regional board has done and required of all agencies over the last 20 years in the San Diego region. Agencies that have stormwater systems are required to have a permit, and then these permits require actions by the cities to develop a stormwater management plan. Well, this new stormwater program in 2013 built upon the previous programs and has formalized a watershed program for which there's planning and assessment to now address stormwater management for all the agencies. We're called co-permittees in the San Diego region. City of Imperial Beach has the Tijuana River water quality, or the Tijuana River watershed and the San Diego Bay watershed. And we collaboratively developed with the other agencies in these watersheds 2 important stormwater management program documents. They're called Water Quality Improvement Plans, WQIPs. It was a public process that was developed over the last 2 years. It included the development of a consultation panel of experts, multiple public workshop meetings, draft submittals to the regional board and comments from the regional board that all kind of led up to these final documents that are ready for submittal to the Regional Water Quality Control Board and need City Council's blessing for us to submit for them for one final comment and review period from the regional board. After we developed these water quality improvement plans, we also simultaneously updated our own jurisdictional program. It's our jurisdictional urban runoff management program. It's this document that we just developed, and it serves both as a work plan for our city staff of how we're going to meet the goals and objectives of the water quality improvement plans, and also a regulatory compliance tool for which we submit to the regional board. And it says these are the actions that we are going to take for preventing stormwater pollution. And then this document, or the jurisdictional stormwater program along with their WQIPs, are to be submitted to the regional board by June 22nd. The regional board will then have a 30-day public comment period for which public comments will be submitted to the board, and then the regional board will have the option to provide comments back to the agencies to either accept and bless their programs and say this is what you'll be implementing for the duration of this permit, or make these revisions, and at which time we'll have another 30 days to make those final revisions into these plans. The resolutions you have before you is to authorize us to submit this report in accordance with the permit, and then at which time we'll either make minor modifications to these stormwater management program documents, or if there are major revisions that the board asks us to make, I will come back to you again and advise you of the major revisions that we had within these documents, and then ask for approval to submit these programs again to the regional board. And with that, I'll take any comments, questions.
Let's make sure, do we have any public comments?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Great. Do we have council comments, questions? Great. Councilmember Bragg.
Thank you. Mr. Helms, you said if there's revisions, you will bring them back to us and then we'll resubmit.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any additional comment? Oh, Councilmember Spriggs.
I'm I just would like you to elaborate a little bit more on the Tijuana River WQIP. It seems like we've got partners on this side of the border for something that's a binational water quality issue. Could you just comment a little bit on how that is factored into how our plans are viewed and judged by the Regional Water Quality Control Board, et cetera?
Yeah, this Briggs, that's a great question on this. The limited scope of these WQAPs only focuses on stormwater discharges happening from the city of Imperial Beach jurisdiction. That given, there's a lot of issues in Tijuana River that needs to be addressed. And part of the reason why the city of Imperial Beach is the lead agency on developing and implementing specifically the Tijuana River Water Quality Improvement Plan is so that we're able to have that advocacy voice for these broader issues, which is the majority of the problem that we're seeing and the majority of the contribution of pollutions entering into the receiving waters in the Tijuana River and impacting our Pacific shoreline. With that said, one of the collaborative strategies that we added to this plan was to collaborate as agencies, which this also includes the city of San Diego and county of San Diego because they fall within the jurisdiction of the Tijuana River watershed, that we will be collaborating and called out the efforts of the Tijuana River Recovery Team. The recovery team is the regional water quality control board efforts specifically to address these binational cross-border pollution issues. So collaboration and we also called out the IBWC Citizens Forum in this document as well, that the city and county of San Diego should be, and IB need to contribute in these larger collaborative efforts to not only address stormwater pollution, but the broader issues in the Tijuana River watershed. And it's another way to strengthen that you have multiple planning documents pointing towards collaboratively and working together to come up with integrated solutions.
Any additional? Yep.
Does that include the city of Coronado?
The city of Coronado actually falls into the San Diego Bay watershed, and they are one of the 9 other co-permittees in the San Diego Bay Water Quality Improvement Plan process.
Great. Thank you very much. And I want to thank you again for your leadership on this issue. It's really important that Imperial Beach is leading this effort on the Tijuana River. And that's because you have extensive knowledge on this issue and, more importantly, giving really specific recommendations to all the agencies involved in both sides of the border and the multilateral, I guess, agencies like the IBWC, et cetera, that really can take decisions and do things that actually reduce beach closures in IB, that really make a difference in reducing pollution flows that arrive to the ocean that end up closing our beaches. So I think that's where we're at now. And I think you've taken the leadership on that. And I know that you're talking to agencies right now about the next steps we have to take in this whole planning process. And it's really important that we do that. And the way I look at the way the border works, we're actually all equal partners, whether or not we're a local city or the EPA or the city of Tijuana. Generally, there's a very good process right now when people are really working to collaborate together. But more importantly, Imperial Beach, along with people like Dave Gibson in the county, have more knowledge on this system than anyone else. So people are waiting for direction and leadership. And I think that's something that we are in the opportunity to provide just because of the extensive knowledge and sort of leadership that you've really developed. So thanks for your leadership on this. And I think we have a good opportunity the next 5 years to really help continue to deal with this issue.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor and Chris, you probably both know that Ed Drusina, the commissioner for IBWC, the U.S. commissioner, is going to be at the next IBWC meeting, which is later this month. So it'd be great maybe to get some public comments from leadership and people involved so that he continues to see these kinds of concerns. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Okay, so end of discussion with the council. And so I'd like to entertain a motion to adopt the following resolutions. A, resolution number 2015-7588, accepting the Imperial Beach Jurisdictional Runoff Management Program and rescission of 2008 Jurisdictional Urban Runoff Management Program. Do I have to do these one by one or all three? We do all three.
You can do all three if you name all of the resolutions.
Okay, resolution 2015-7589, accepting the San Diego Bay Water Quality Improvement Plan. And C, resolution 2015-7590, accepting the Tijuana River Water Quality Improvement Plan and authorizing the Public Works Director to sign and forward these documents to the San Diego Regional Water Quality Control Board in accordance with the Regional Stormwater Permit R9 2013-001. Is there a motion? Please vote.
Motion carried unanimously.
And with that, thank you all for attending, and please